Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 145. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the comics forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Jim the Crash Test Whatnot Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
And in our blooper reel for this particular episode, we'll have an explanation on the crash test whatnot. Jim was supposed to come over and record today, and we'll have to share why Jim was not able to come over to record today. And I'm glad you're alive, though, dude.
So am I. You know what? The big whatnot in the sky was looking out for me, so thank you, Jesus.
We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. February 6th through the 8th, Jim and I are going to be at the New York Comic Con. Go to RagingBullets.com and click on the link right up at the top of the site and check out the growing list of guests, including guests of honor, Grant Morrison, Jeff Johns, George Perez, Carmine Infantino, J. Michael Straczynski, Jim Lee, Adam and Andy Kubert, Bruce Timm. The list just keeps growing. Neil Adams is going to be there. So definitely check out the New York Comic Con. I know that they're going to be debuting the Wonder Woman direct-to-DVD release there, which I'm really excited to see. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on at the New York Comic Con. We're looking forward to seeing you. Please make sure to stop by the table and visit us and hang out with us, and we'll definitely be sure to get together with you guys outside after the show. It would be a lot of fun just to hang out and chat comics. So if you're going to be around, please let us know. New York Comic Con, it's going to be the place to be February 6th through the 8th, and we definitely hope to see you. Like I said, visit the website. We got a handy-dandy link right up at the top of the page. You can click on it and check out all the news at the New York Comic Con this year. We're looking forward to seeing you. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InstockTrades.com. We're talking Doom Patrol, which is a Vertigo series. Let's take a look at some of the Vertigo titles that are going to be coming out, such as 100 Bullets number 100. This is it, the final issue of the Eisner Award-winning, critically acclaimed series, and it comes to its inevitably blood-soaked end. What final fate do Agent Graves and the rest of the cast face? Who will be left standing when the gun smoke clears? And this is regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $179. So definitely check out the conclusion of that wonderful series. It's one of those that I tried doing in trade for a little bit, and I had to switch back to monthly because I'm enjoying so much following the story. And 100 issues, and I'm sad to see it ending. Air Volume 1, Letters from Lost Countries. Written by G. Willow Wilson, art and cover by M.K. Perker. This is the trade paperback that collects issues 1 through 5 of the new series Air. Blythe knew there was no time like the present, more dangerous to be an airline stewardess, but the skies might be much more dangerous than anyone imagines. She just learned of the Artesian Front, vigilantes dedicated to take the skies back from terrorism, and they're after Zane, a man she just met. Whether he's an average frequent flyer or a terrorist, finding out will lead Blythe to discover weird science of hyperaxis and the mysterious artifact that will change the way we see technology forever. This is from the Comics Imprint Note for Innovation, and this is a wonderful series. Action, adventure, drama, and it's just a great series. It's regularly $9.99, 50% off, only $4.99, which is a great way to check out the first 5 issues of a series at about $1 a piece. So definitely check that one out if you haven't had a chance to check out Air. DCBService.com is your source for your pre-order needs. Definitely check them out. Don't forget our Instock Trades Book of the Month is chosen by Mike Sims, Flash Rogues. Regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. This collects Flash 177 to 181 by Jeff Johns. Keystone City is on the brink of destruction again, and only the Flash can save it in the Flash Rogues. But can he handle Captain Cold and Mirror Master as well? Throw in Plunderer, Gorilla Grodd, and the Pied Piper, and it's a recipe for disaster. So definitely check that one out. It's 138 pages, and we're going to be chatting about it all around the end of January. So as we get closer to that one, we'll let you know the exact date of that episode. Another one we're really looking forward to talking about on the show. Trades, hardcovers, if it's collected and you're looking for it, InstockTrades.com has everything you need. And remember, orders over $50 get free shipping. So thanks for supporting us, DCBService.com and InstockTrades.com. On this episode, Jim and I are going to be finishing up our discussion with David Faust on Doom Patrol, the painting that ate Paris. And we had a very healthy discussion on this particular volume because there was a ton to talk about. Actually, the second half of it was like a whole other trade in itself. So we had a whole complete storyline, which was nice about the way we divided it up because really you could listen to part 1 and part 2 of this discussion pretty independently. So anyway, this is our Christmas Day episode. Happy holidays, and hope you enjoy listening. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in depth in the plot line, story twists, and the whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
I want to give a quick shout out to our listener voicemail line, which is 1-440-388-4434, or Dr. Norge on Skype. We did not do any voicemails on this episode because Jim wasn't able to come over to record them. So we will be doing those on our next episode, and the episode after that, and the episode after that for sure, until we get caught up with them. Keep those voicemails coming. We love them. So don't worry, we are going to get to all of them. Just because Jim wasn't going to be here. I was going to record them solo, and then I'm kind of like, well, something's going to be lost if I do that, because sometimes it's fun when there's the interplay with Jim and myself off of some voicemail comment that comes up. So I decided to just save them until he comes back. So in our January 1st episode, we'll be kicking off a whole bunch of voicemails that we'll be doing over the next few episodes. So keep them coming. We're going to get to all of them. No worries. And thank you so much for your patience and understanding on that one.
And our next review is going to be finishing up our discussion on Doom Patrol, The Painting That Ate Paris. The writer is Grant Morrison, penciler Richard Case, inker John Nyberg, colorist Daniel Vozo, letterer J. Dubb and John Workman. The editor is Scott Nybakken. The original cover artist was Samuel Beisler, and the trade cover artist is Brian Boland.
Joining us is David Faust, Simulated Stereo from the forum. So, David, welcome back for part 2 of our discussion.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm really happy to be back. I love doing this.
I'm excited to talk about this one again. I was so jazzed up after last week that I actually reread these issues again. And we started talking about this before we were recording. I reread them because I wanted to get my head around this again, because this last batch of it got really wacky.
It did, yeah.
Dude, man, I want what he's smoking. The thing with reading Grant Morrison stuff is it's so out there that you can't just sit there and read it. You actually got to study it a little bit. And I got to say, these 3 stories that were covered in the second half of the trade, I understood them better than the first time through. I didn't like the one shot we're about to go into with Jane.
Are you saying you got confused on rereads?
No. I mean, after the first read through, I had a good, solid understanding.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, because the way you said I understood them better the first time through. And I'm like, so what happened? It all just fell apart after the rereads. I didn't understand. I'm sorry. I didn't. I really was. I was listening to what you were saying, and I'm like, well, what does that mean?
Well, I meant to say better than when I read Painting That Ate Paris.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant to say, but I forgot to include the Painting That Ate Paris story. So
okay,
my bad.
All those preconceived notions just shattered.
Actually, I thought that would have been an interesting exploration. Like, how confused? Like, what would happen if you read it again? Would you get even more confused? It now affects your other comic reading. The one thing I liked about, I'm going to be honest with you, my experience with this whole, and I'm just going to go off the whole trade. I'm a big fan of the Abrams Zucker original movies like Airplane, Airplane 2, Top Secret. And one thing I've always liked about those films is no matter how many times I've seen them, I catch something in the background, because they were always, in the original films, they were like masterpieces because of all of the quick jokes, stuff that was going on in the background that, like, if you were paying attention to the foreground, you would miss. And I always liked that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
With
I completely
this,
agree.
Morrison to me is a lot like that in the sense that through multiple read-throughs, you get something different. You understand a character's perspective and a little bit different. There's a lot of value in rereading him because it becomes a richer experience, because you catch whole themes and connecting threads that you didn't catch before. But as this one in particular, I will say, this particular volume, I enjoyed it all the first time through, but totally agree with you, Jim, that in multiple read-throughs, there's something more to it. There's something. Last episode, we talked about the rocking horse. After having read through this once, to be able to then go through, and I reread through it again, I noticed the rocking horse and started thinking about, because we're going to start talking about in this particular issue, Jane and her background. And the rocking horse was so totally, for me, her original persona, or representation there.
I reread it again with that in mind, what you were saying last week about the rocking horse, and yeah, it totally fits.
Because that persona's trapped as basically as a 5-year-old. All of a sudden connected, and that adds enjoyment to going back through and rereading, because there's something different to the experience the second time, the third time through. Even, reading this again, yesterday was my third read through this second batch. And there was something more to catch out of it that time through as well. So,
Okay, well, let's jump into issue 30. I have to say, this one was my favorite story of all of the different story arcs in this trade. This one, it's... for some reason, I really dig this one. It was, as I said, I understood it going through the first time through. Second time through, I saw little stuff. Third time, I really just appreciated the deep level that it goes into. It gives us some really cool insight into Crazy Jane, but it also helps, kind of flesh out Cliff for me. Because we see Cliff as the man and the hero in here, as well as seeing what makes Crazy Jane tick.
Plus, you like issues where people massage brains.
Well, I do enjoy that. A little known thing that I dig. The little reach into the skull, rub the brain a little bit, just give a little tweaks, here and there. It's, I'm kind of like the...
You're the Siler of our podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
I like to know how things work. The issue basically is a...
Sorry, I completely took you off your train of thought.
You got me big time now. Because then I just started thinking heroes references I can throw in there, and I'm like, no, stop, Jim, stop. But the issue basically is dealing with the fact that when Jane took down that fifth horseman, it really kind of messed up her psyche, and she's left in this catatonic type state that's not your normal, typical, average, coma. It's the Doom Patrol, so it's got to be something a little bit super freaky. And in order for them to help her, we see Negative Man is able to pull the psyche of Cliff's psyche into her brain, which... I like the fact that, one, that it was Cliff selected because she trusts him. Of everyone in that team, he's the one that, she looks to and is going to be, he's like more supportive of the rest of the team. And I also think that he's really the only one, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, of the team that is the dun-dun-dun type of hero. And when you're dealing with every craziness that's going on inside there, that's kind of the guy you want to send in my opinion. You want the one who's the inspirational type hero, not the fighter reactionary.
One of the things I like about this book, though, and it's the ongoing theme, these guys don't always win in at least the traditional sense that we're used to. Sometimes it's just about surviving. Because if you think about how this story ends, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer to it, it isn't like a full-blown win like we're traditionally used to.
Yeah, it's never cut and dry with these guys, and that is something that's, if you're not used to that, if you don't expect it can throw you off a little bit, because they're the scramblers.
I actually quite like that, though, because it's nice because earth-shattering situations. And, even the ending of the last one, Painting Ace Paid Paris, that's not a clean win.
There's no clean wins in this book.
But,
not at all.
Because in that case, the villains were all left trapped, which isn't a very traditionally heroic ending, that they would leave things that way. And, it was one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about this is it felt very realistic. The other thing I like about them, too, is being that they're misfits, I like as we're getting to know them more, the main focus is trying to make life as good as possible for each of them. Helping them get a handle on what's going on with them, helping to make life the even better experiences. We see a lot of that in the exploration of both Cliff and Crazy Jane throughout this. And I have a funny feeling as the series goes on, because Rebus even makes reference to the fact that, he's trying to get a handle on him, or they are trying to get a handle on themselves, however you want to take a look at it.
Well, you can also see it with Dorothy in the arc that follows this one, where the little quick scene of her just kind of in her room, standing in front of a mirror, just kind of talking to her doll. It's like they try to give her and each other as normal a life or as comfortable a life as they can.
Now, do we see more of Dorothy later on in later trades? Does she actually go on missions? Because so far I haven't seen anything with her really doing anything other than just standing around and being just a also-ran.
She gets very, very important in the 4th and 5th trades.
Cool. Now, I dig when we actually see the inside of Jane's head, inside her psyche, how it basically was, road maps, city maps, subway system, however you want to describe it. I like seeing that notion, because she has these multiple personalities. Each one has their own train station, but because everything that's going on, the complete system's out of whack, they have lines that are down, and it's pure chaos inside this crazy pocket.
And some of them, their trauma has been so great that they've shut themselves down. They've shut down their own lines, and that's also horrifying. I also like that there's this concept of levels. Like there's an underground that's for the people that have gone down so deep that they never want to resurface again.
Yeah.
That to me is, I think, a huge factor in all this.
Now, one thing I thought was kind of interesting, if I read interviews over the years that the Wachowski brothers, when they made The Matrix, they borrowed pretty liberally from The Invisibles. If you ever saw the third Matrix film, it kind of opens with Neo in a train station that's kind of standing in for his mind. He's like in his own head, but he's in a train station, and that's really what this reminded me of as well.
Yeah, I can definitely get that vibe from it.
Yeah.
I actually didn't make that connect until you said that, and I'm like, well, yeah, actually, that does fit.
Yeah.
Especially if they pulled from Invisibles, you would imagine that they read Doom Patrol as well then.
Exactly, yeah. And also, one thing about Jane I wanted to say about her personalities, most of the names come from songs, particularly a lot of British psychedelic folk groups, Hangman's Beautiful Daughter, Pretty Polly, and several of the others. Driver 8's an REM song, actually.
Some of the poetry, too, when we get to the one that was the poet, was pulled from songs as well.
Yep.
Cool. Now, I like the engineer, that concept of that there was the one central focus person that Cliff could deal with. Now, do you guys think the engineer is always there, or was the engineer manifested for Cliff so he could navigate around?
She came later, I think it said. The engineer kind of came about as more personalities developed and it became kind of chaotic. It's just kind of, her mind developed a kind of manager.
As a way of coping with the puzzle. I do love the
Right.
puzzle concept because we constantly see puzzle pieces, as you go through, and then her mind's like a puzzle.
But I also took there's another reference to puzzle that we'll see a little bit later on that I really liked. Seeing these puzzle pieces
Right.
with the connection when we learn her
But
big secret.
That's the concept is that puzzle shattered because of those events.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So that's why her mind became fragmented like the puzzle.
Yeah, and are any of you guys familiar with the book When Rabbit Howls?
No.
Maybe it's one that you've seen. I don't know. You see them a lot at thrift stores and stuff. It's a book about, it's a real-life story about a woman named Trudy Chase who had multiple personalities develop as a result of child abuse, and she was the basis for the Crazy Jane character.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So he actually pulled from that story for this.
Definitely. And I sent also, I just sent you guys a file, a JPEG file, which is the Crazy Jane painting.
And where was that painting from?
They mentioned later an artist named Richard Dodd. He was an artist in Victorian England. He had mental problems. He killed his father. He became well known for painting pictures of fairies and other scenes, very elaborate paintings. And he had one painting of a woman called Crazy Jane, and that's where the name came from.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And that's Richard Dadd.
Right.
Yeah, it does look like her.
It does, yeah.
So yeah, I like when you see these. Now, did you hear that like on an interview, or how'd you find this out, or did you just do research, or what?
Research, just reading as much as I can about it. Wikipedia, Comic Book DB, various sites here and there.
That's interesting, this story, you connected with it in such a strong way that you wanted to go beyond the book.
Oh, it was just, it's so dense, and not just the story, but also the art. There's so much there that you just really want to learn more. At least I did.
Well, yeah, you mentioned in the last recording that we did with this, you wanted to get into what his influences were, and you wanted to see what was he listening to, what was he reading, what was he, during the time that he was doing all this, to kind of, I think it was kind of to delve into the whole experience yourself in a manner that he did, which is, it's interesting to see how much of that, and see how much of that translated then, because I'm interested now that you're mentioning the book to read it, just because how much of that influenced this.
Well, that's usually, growing up, when I would get into bands or whatever, that's how I got into other bands, by reading interviews and seeing what they were influenced by and getting into that stuff, and just on and on and on. So I just apply to everything. And
figuring that if they liked that, or if they were drawn to that you would find some connection with it as well because you enjoyed their work.
Exactly.
Now, I like the we keep talking about the layers and the structuring and all that. Now, I like that Jane is, for all practical purposes, the dominant personality there, and that's the whole central around this problem, because Jane has been so beaten up over this stuff that she's thinking about basically destroying herself by throwing herself into this well. They start talking, and we see later on what the well is. Now, that, of course, would shatter the whole environment if the dominant one were to go down. And that's another concept. I like that, you have this strong force. She had another one that was her original personality. That one destroyed itself, so Jane became the dominant.
That's
and the
not
system
true.
wouldn't
There's
survive.
been 3 of them. There was Kay, the 5-year-old.
Right.
Who never returned again. Then there was Miranda, and then there was Jane. Which, that's interesting to me because they talk about Jane throwing herself in the well. Is there then, did Miranda pass the torch? How does that work? Or is it just because this traumatic event has happened so many times that would be the last straw that would finally shatter the brain? Is that it? Because is it the puzzle concept in the sense that the puzzle is so scattered? The pieces are so scattered at this point that they need that tether to hold them together? I don't know.
Well, again, when you think about, going back to the Matrix, if you look at Jane when she's standing by the well, they talked about in the Matrix the residual self-image, whereas what you see in your head is kind of a representation of who you are. And Jane standing by the well, ready to throw herself in, is the Jane that we see out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a way of kind of destroying herself.
Yeah, and kind of just maybe ending it all. I mean,
right.
So it doesn't happen again. The cycle doesn't continue. Because really, we talk about Kay. Kay, the 5-year-old, went through a very traumatic event that we'll be talking about as we go through. That was the initial fragmentation of the psyche, I'm guessing. That's how we got these multiple personalities.
Well, I took it that was the birth of Miranda and something like Miranda and maybe Baby Doll or stuff like that.
Right.
And so when Kay goes away, Miranda stepped up and she became the thing. And then as she's growing older,
Miranda was
as she
able to
gets
cope
stronger,
eventually.
but she was probably reminded of what happened to Kay, and that's what killed off Miranda.
Well, she definitely was, because when they talk about her station,
right.
They say that there was an event that happened in a church.
Right.
Where she all of a sudden, with the lamb, it was the whole lamb thing reconnected then with the tragic event that happened in her childhood, which set her off the deep end, and I'm guessing led to Jane eventually as being a coping tool.
Yeah, that's what it's like Jane then was strong. It's, you have the child gets corrupted, and then you have this, developed, intelligent person pop out of this. But then when that one fails, you go to your primal needs. You go towards Jane.
It sounds like somebody helped Kay to become Miranda, just in the sense that Kay was probably so shattered. And I don't think it's it's like a light switch where the Kay personality shut down and all of a sudden we had Miranda. I think what happened was people helped her to become Miranda, through coping and things like that. And then the Doom Patrol helped Miranda become Jane.
There's one possibility also that Jane could have come about as a result of the gene bomb explosion in Invasion, because the incident with Miranda in the church happened, and then she went into the mental institution, and at some point there, that was when the gene bomb went off in the Invasion arc, and then Jane could have been a result of that, as well as the superpowers for all of the other personalities.
Right. Well, and she, on her own, put herself into the hospital.
Right.
It was almost like she didn't want to let go when she signed herself into the hospital. Mm-hmm. It was like, I think she wanted to let go of the personality, but not the rest of her. Because it was the personality shut down, but it seems like these personalities are protective of the person. So because they were set up as protection mechanisms rather than destroying the whole personality, but Jane, and I think the distinction with Jane and what we're seeing in this story is Jane wants to end the cycle. I don't think the other two did. The other two wanted to find a way to cope with it. Jane doesn't want to cope. Jane wants to break the cycle so it doesn't have to happen to another personality. Is that how you guys are reading that? Is that the distinction here, why the well would be the end of it for this time around? Because she wants to end the cycle?
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of, and also, I think those partially, at this point in time in the book, she's kind of even lost hope, given up. She's like, this is it, I'm over. It's that when you're just to that point of exhaustion, and you have nothing left to give, and you're just like, that's it, I'm done. And I really think she wants to die now. She wants just to completely be gone, done, no more fight is left in her. And that is, part of the coolness that we later see come from Cliff to kind of like give her the strength to fight on.
But one thing, the distinction I like about this, though, is that she does not want any of the other personalities to go through the same experience. Where Miranda checked herself into the hospital, clearly she wanted to end her existence as a personality, but the other personalities she wanted to live on, which is, I'm guessing, how we got Jane. And how we got Miranda from Kay, in the sense that they wanted to continue on through these coping. Like, Kay's still down there somewhere.
I actually think Miranda is also still down. Miranda threw herself in the well as well, and so
the well sounds like it's it. They're convinced it's it.
Here's the thing: I think it's not it. I personally think that, and I don't know if this is going to be a future story or whatnot, but I think Jane could go on the well and pull them back out of the well. I don't think
who's them.
Their personalities, their life force.
Miranda's the only one that's thrown herself in the well. I
thought Kay did.
No. Kay's in the underground. Kay's still in her place in the underground. Nobody's seen her.
Oh, okay.
There's a distinction between Miranda and Kay. Miranda threw herself into the well. Kay's still down there.
Okay, so
in the underground where they have their own stations. Kay has a station still.
Okay, I took it that Kay also threw herself.
No.
Okay.
So she's so deep underground, nobody's seen her, is what they said with her.
Yeah.
Miranda threw herself in the well. I took it that Miranda's done. And that, like, her station is a horrible reminder of what could happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, I don't know how right or wrong I am. I haven't read the rest of it, so I'm not sure. But
if you consider that, what is the well, or what resides in the bottom of the well?
Okay.
And if you if she throws one of her personalities into it, it's effectively destroyed.
Yeah, see, I took it as Miranda's a done issue.
Okay.
But Kay, there actually is a distinction with Kay. Because when the conductor's talking about Kay, he makes reference to the fact that she's still down there, but so far underground that nobody has seen her in years. It's like that personality's completely shut itself off. But then there is an option then for them to... I think there's an option then for Jane to connect with Kay. Out of this.
Well, and I agree. I thought when I was reading this, I did think she was dead and gone. But I was just, one of those things. Whenever I get into a story, I start thinking of stuff that could happen. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that did pop in my head is, what if Jane could rescue Miranda? What if Jane could rescue Kay? What if she could, start pulling and start, fighting her way back and getting these different personalities, straightening them out and whatnot?
I see what you're saying, though, like in the sense that this could turn, that you were seeing the possibility this could turn into a story where, like, she would pull all the personalities together to somehow make the mind hold again, that type of thing?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay, and I can see that type of storytelling. I guess I just, the way that it was, they were so adamant that the well was the end of it all, that I took it as, if Miranda went down the well, it's effectively personality suicide.
Oh yeah, that's how I read it as well. But this is a comic book, so death isn't permanent.
Yeah. Also, if any of you guys reading Teen Titans, apparently in the last Teen Titans number 36, you can see Crazy Jane in the issue. She has kind of a cameo appearance. When
I was looking her up on Wikipedia just to get kind of a little background into Crazy Jane and like her early appearances, they had mentioned that, and I went back and I looked.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And
yeah, I'm glad they kind of pulled her.
And I'm glad the character's still around, and maybe we'll even see some more of her, because she's definitely an interesting person. And I don't know, she's one of those characters I do want to see more of. There's the Doom Patrol. They got some pretty cool guys, and I would definitely probably now pick up a mini-series or limited series on them and read about what's currently going on with them. But she is one of those characters that I would gravitate to, even if she had her own solo thing. Now, she doesn't...
I'd love a monthly of this again.
Yeah.
I would love I really would love a Vertigo monthly of this again, because this fits that style. I'd really like to see that again. I think these characters work in more that quirky, Vertigo-y type environment than in the DC universe proper. Although if a writer could get that type of feel, I guess it kind of goes back to our discussion in the last episode where I don't understand why you can't set a book in the Vertigo universe that bleeds over into DC. I don't think it has to be a part of the 52, but I think there's certain books thematically that would work as a Vertigo title, yet have ties into the DCU.
Okay, let's get back to this now.
You are such a taskmaster.
Yes, I am. Hey, I'm running the lead on this, baby. You'll do as I say, how I say, mister. Straighten up. Fly right. Hoorah. Okay, going through the life inside Jane we get to see a lot of the interesting the characters, and this was kind of cool moments. Just you get an vast understanding last issue of just how many names when she's writing down all the names, and they were just her and Cliff are going over the list and this and that, and just he's trying to get an understanding of how many personalities are inside there, and he was on multiple pages, and she was still going strong. So for us to get even a closer look at them was definitely a nice thing. And even I liked it add to why Cliff went in, because he had already had built up this rapport. He already tried to get an understanding of who and what is Jane.
And if you remember during that, though, some of her personality started to lash out.
Right.
Because not all of them would want people to know where they were at. Some of them want to stay hidden, so they don't want a map.
Yeah.
Now, you get the characters that you would expect to be in Crazy Jane, like Black Annis. But when I saw that baby doll, I started laughing just because it was that sweet and innocent and goodly, kind of, sickly sweet type character inside this, psychotic powerhouse. And I was like, oh, we're going to see more of Baby Doll. She's got to come out. And she does come out later in the next story arc, which led to a funny moment between her and Cliff.
The Miranda station's one we got to talk about, though, because that station, Miranda's gone, and there's this whole Stigmata station that's left behind. And it's just people hanging there, and just it's to the point where the conductor, so mortified by the whole thing, tells Cliff to cover his eyes because it's such a traumatic experience. He doesn't even want Cliff to go through it because obviously it's such a scarred part of the personality. I mean, imagine that. The personality is completely given up and gone, but the echoes left over by this trauma that this one's gone through. So what's Kay like? If Miranda left this kind of residue, Kay's still there. What is Kay's world like? Very interesting as a study. And then we also see the one, the poet that we were talking about, where with the songs that she had. Sylvia. It was Sylvia.
On page 116, the bottom one, they talk about Sylvia, who I guess is kind of like supposed to be Sylvia Plath, kind of a suicidal poet. But they talk about how she can only compose fragments of poems and not the whole thing, and that if she can somehow put the pieces together, the finished poem will become a key, and she'll escape from her room. I think that right there, that bit of dialogue introduces a big theme, I think, that runs through this whole trade and really comes into focus in the next arc about the power of language and how language is like words and language have a deep magical significance. And that really comes into play a lot later, I think. It's introduced right here.
You know what was interesting after poor Sylvia? Did you notice the conductor put together a whole poem? I thought it was particularly interesting that the conductor's kind of the sympathetic kind of watcher of this world. Kind of almost like the Watcher in the Marvel Universe. Can't really directly influence the others. At least that's my impression right now. But has like I don't want to say a protective quality because it makes it seem like the character's a lot more interactive with them. But really this guide really just has like an emotional sympathy towards all of these.
Well, she's like a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I liked, though, that it wasn't just cold-hearted. I really liked that as we were going along, this guide had an emotion and was reacting to what was being seen versus... Because you could have gone with a very stoic guide. And what worked there was, when we went through Miranda Station, the horror. When we went through with Sylvia, there was a sympathetic end. It was Morrison's way of guiding us emotionally through these characters and connecting us with an emotional reaction to them. It made me feel like I was looking at these characters instead of reading about them. Like I was going along on the journey because of the fact that it was being described to me in such a way like I was there. I liked it. I thought that was the use of the conductor and making the choice of making the conductor someone who had an emotional reaction to these characters enhanced the experience for me. Because you could have gone, like I said, robotic, very stoic, not reacting emotionally at all to any of this. And I'm glad that they didn't go that route.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, as Cliff's going through the processing, he's going down deeper, going down into the underground. He's got to leave the train. He's got to go on foot because the tracks have been damaged and derailed. And, he's going out, and he's running into more of these characters. We saw, like, Hammerhead in the background. We saw, Annis again. It's these different characters, and they start to rebel against Cliff. They see him as this outside man who could do more damage to them, which, once again, it's another cool thing where they're like, the body is fighting what they don't understand. They're fighting...
No. See, they're reacting to the fact that the traumatic experience was caused by a man. Little man, you're all the same. We should never have trusted you. All men are the same. Again, this is a brutal reaction to males as a figure, especially a male father figure type, which Cliff has become to Jane at this point. That was the part where I was just, whoa! There's a violent reaction to Cliff.
One thing is, you look closely at the puzzle that young Kay is putting together, and then go back to where they talk about being in the church.
Oh, the lambs?
When Miranda was in the church, yeah, the lambs.
Yeah.
When they talk about the lamb, which often comes up in church services, they talk about the blood of the lamb. And then if you look at the puzzle she's putting together, it's lambs.
Yeah, and even the reference to baby lamb as it's shattering later.
Did anybody else, did you guys ever see the movie The Cell?
I did years ago.
I didn't.
This really, visually, really, this looks very similar.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I didn't make that connection until you just mentioned it, but I can definitely get that connection from this.
That was the Jennifer Lopez movie, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see that when it came out. I was like, I don't know. She's nice to look at, but I don't like her acting that well, so I didn't really. Yeah. I wasn't too excited to go see it.
It was a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
I actually liked it. Yeah,
very visually interesting.
It really surprised me. It wasn't what I expected at all, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I saw it over here, and I had no knowledge of it. I went in, my wife and I went to see it. We were bored one day, and that was the only English language movie playing, and it was pretty surprising.
I like the concept in this of the conductor being considered by members of the personalities as a Judas.
Yeah,
because of standing by Cliff, of the father. Again, Cliff is the father figure role right now, and I'm totally reading that is being rebelled against because they don't want to trust another father figure. Last time they trusted, the father figure, there was a huge problem because of it. They don't want to trust that again. So now you've got all the personalities banding together, and this was, to me, visually probably one of the coolest sequences to just get a glimpse into the different potential power sets, the different potential personalities to handle situations, and how they come together for the purpose of protecting Jane.
Yeah, now the nun with the chainsaw really had me curious as to who that is and what she's all about. I like how Cliff gets past them, not by force, but by who he is. And this is one of those moments where we start to really see Cliff, kind of man up and hero up here. He's like, I'm not a man, though. Look at me. And he's you think about this guy. He had a body. He had, everything, and that all got taken away from him. There's like some despair and loneliness that it really just permeates from Cliff, and it's that same connection that they have. Right. They've both had these life-altering, just traumatic events that they have to deal with, that they have to take the pain, that they have to work through and try to actually use the pain for some good.
She's mentally fragmented. He's physically fragmented.
Right.
Because it was all burned or ripped away or amputated. All they left was a brain. In her case, the body was there, but the mind is horribly fragmented. So it's interesting that he was able to just break it down to the basics. I really like the fact, too, that he took off the clothes to show the robotic body.
Right.
It was a visual cue to say, hey, look, I'm not what you think I am. I understand. I've been there. And that reaching out to me was just a very powerful moment, to the point where a personality that has never
spoken before steps up, the purple lady steps up and says, hey, hold on here. And you mentioned how he took off his clothes. I thought that was a cool thing because usually with him, he's always trying to put the clothes on. He's trying to blend in. He's trying to, fit in and,
take some of his humanity back.
Yeah, and so here he had to completely shed all that and show this is who I am. Show his pain to those who are also suffering, so they know that this isn't a happy-go-lucky guy who's he's not a Kansas farm boy raised up with superhuman powers. This is a tormented soul. This is a kindred spirit.
Well, clothes are, when you think about it, they're an extension of your personality. They're your opportunity to express yourself, to present yourself to people, and that was one of the parts where I really liked it. I did like that this was a show of trust from Jane's personalities, in the sense that the Purple Lady was showing a complete. This is one that's never trusted enough before to reach out. Now this one trusts enough to reach out, to take a chance. So Cliff had made such an impact.
Now, my question for you guys, and one of the thoughts that popped in my head with Purple Lady is, what if, because I was thinking, what if this is the fragment of the true personality that is Jane? So
what
the K.
What if it's Kay?
What if this is Kay grown up? And that's why they've never heard from her. She's never spoken before. And that's why they can't find Kay, because they're looking for Kay, and they should look for the Purple Lady.
That's a good point. I mean, because you never really see her again, and the thing with Kay is never exactly resolved. It could very well be.
I didn't take it as being Kay, but I could totally see that. That was an interesting observation. Because you're right, that would be something so... And who's to say that Kay's personality would not have eventually grown? Or maybe... Well, they do refer to her as the Purple Lady, though, meaning that they knew that she was a lady all along. I guess it was saying maybe this was the chance for Kay to start growing up, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just
that was interesting. I didn't think of that. It's an interesting observation.
Okay, so as Cliff is going down, he's going down now by himself. He doesn't have the conductor anymore, and... it's, once again, just more cool Cliff stuff, because you're in this crazy world. You have no idea what you're dealing with, but you got to do the right thing. You got to step up. You got to be the hero. You got to save Jane. You got to do what you can to help her. And as he's going in deeper, that's when we start to see what exactly, it starts all unfolding, what exactly it was that, created, the original the splintering of Kay. And it's one of those story arcs where it's a horrific event that it's one of those things where I don't ever make light of it. I don't like when people make light of it, and this did not make light of it. It used it in such a wonderful way. We're dealing with, a father who abused, his own daughter, abuse and just, rape and various, sexual deviancy is a very tough area to deal with when you're telling a story, because you don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to make it look like you're cracking a joke on, on this type of stuff. But for me, this was just a really wow moment when it all comes together and you see what it is that created this hero. And I was just like, man, because we know Mia has had a rough road, when she become Speedy, and she's had some rough roads. And I started thinking, are there other heroes out there who have had these type of events, who've had these horrific things happen to them, who they've said, okay, I'm turning this around. I'm going to take this and, make something positive out of it. Use the strength that was created by this incredibly dark event. And that was the connection moment for me with Crazy Jane that made me say, damn, I want to see more of this character.
I think, it's interesting when I'm looking at the situation here with the manifestation of the father when he's coming out of the well. It's almost like that moment she's like completely giving up all hope and giving up all sense of coping, all sense of recovery, all sense of possibly getting to any level of normalcy at this point, and just letting Jane succumb to this whole thing. Now, I guess you kind of wonder if symbolically, if she lets the dad run rampant here, it would have just destroyed everything and left her like almost a vegetable.
Probably. Mm-hmm. I take it if the father would have destroyed Crazy Jane, he would have he would have left the underground and gone through the entire system one by one, decimating everything until boom, everything was destroyed. That's what they were talking about, that the body could not survive losing Jane.
Right. Yeah, it's really, I think it's just kind of really, this is like the one that holds off. I think, anytime you go through something that traumatic, there's a part of yourself that has to decide whether or not you even attempt to take the chance to cope with it or to, find a way to live with it.
Yeah.
It almost seems like, too, this is her first chance that she faces it.
Yeah, she definitely, this is really the first confrontation, before she's been hiding from it, burying it, running from it, building up these other characters. And I like the fact that she doesn't initially, lash out against it. She is still that scared little girl who's putting together her little puzzle piece when her father bursts in the door and does his horrific thing. So, but it's not the monster coming at her. It's not the pending doom that snaps her out of it. It's the fact that Cliff steps up. Cliff's like, run, Jane, run. I'm going to fight this guy. And Cliff, basically throws himself in between Jane and this monster, putting his own life, mind, body, soul, whatever it is, on the line to save her. And that is the inspiration she needs to stand up. That is what gives her her power of her voice to tell her father to go off, buddy. I'm in charge here. You're not in control anymore. And that was the hero moment, the dun da da moment I had with Cliff when he just, you sacrifice your life for the safety of somebody else. That, it's, hero textbook 101. And I ate that up.
I'm looking at the artwork for the dad, and you got to say to yourself, did the artist at one point in time say, he's not grotesque enough? Let me add other. I mean, you couldn't possibly get to be more ugly. He makes Shrek look handsome. I mean, and
well, I'm looking at the same picture, and it's taking me back to Arkham Asylum. Remember Amadeus Arkham as a boy confronting his very mentally ill mother who possibly had abused him, and she's eating beetles.
Yeah.
And then you see the father here covered in beetles and other insects.
There's a worm coming out of his ear.
And drool. Lots of drool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Wait, you know what? The drool is probably the most visually pleasing part. It's funny, my eye is so drawn to all the other horrific stuff that I'm like, the drool's kind of like an afterthought.
Yeah.
You're right, he is drooling, but there's a worm coming out of his ear.
And they laid it on. They laid it on for this.
And I don't know what's going on the left nipple. I don't know if that's hair or shrubbery growing out of there, but I mean, it's, see all that? I mean, that's like, ew.
Yeah, that's a little disgusting there.
Yeah.
Not a pretty man, no.
No, he's not a very handsome, he'd need like a suit. The only makeover he could get, like on those extreme makeover shows, is like if they used a machete.
Yeah, I also think I wanted to go back to what Jim said a little bit about Jane standing in front of the well. I think it's interesting that it's Jane standing in front of the well confronting her father and not one of the more powerful personalities like Black Annis or Hammerhead. I think when we see Jane here, it's as close to how she sees herself as a whole person doing it, and I think it makes it all the stronger.
Well, I think because Jane is the connecting thread. Jane is, as the dominant personality, I think all of those personalities, including the one that you're mentioning, are in some ways at this point right now. I don't think it's just Jane there. I think Jane being the connecting thread, she's kind of the glue holding it all together, which is why I think if Jane were to fall there, the puzzle would stay shattered. She's keeping all these pieces together on some crazy level.
Now, do we get in future future trades and future arcs more dealings with the inner Jane psyche?
Not so much. It's pretty much mostly dealt with here. From this point on, Jane becomes a more integrated part of the team.
So this is more of a solidifying of the dominant person, kind of like because Miranda, you get the impression when you're reading Miranda that Miranda had for a decent amount of time a normal life.
Right, she had a job.
Yeah, she had a job, and as a teenager, she actually had prospects for a future. But then all of a sudden, the church event happened, and Jane's confronting the thing that Miranda was not able to handle here.
Right.
Which is, I think, the distinction between Jane and Miranda, and why perhaps Jane could move on after this. Because she's right here at the well saying, don't say a word, don't tell, you're dirty, don't say. We're seeing her go through right now the events as they've happened, having to face them head on. And I guess this is the point where, do you face it and move on? Are you able to face it, confront it, and move on? Or do you, at this point in time, fall in? And she sees now a new father figure in Cliff, who's willing to give of himself, who's willing to risk himself to help her move on, to confront the beast that she has been hiding from for so long. This evil, this father who had done this horrible thing to her that now she's taken. And, I mean, really, we're seeing visually how much this did to her. To a 5-year-old, the father would look like this huge, horrible beast if he was doing these things to her that were so outside of her comfort zone. And that's what I really liked about it. It was really one of these moments where you get to see an opportunity for this person, and she's never going to be, the way I looked at it is, she's never going to be Kay again, because that innocence is lost. That was lost at 5 years old. The question is, can she be now a whole person? And can she move on and have a normal life? And I think this is the opportunity. It's to me, I agree with you. It's between this and the last issue, which one was my favorite issue on this one, and I'm very torn on it. Because there were certain reasons why I connected with the last issue. There were certain reasons why I connected with this one. And this, for me, is one of those issues where, I guess we were so ready at this point for more exploration into Doom Patrol itself, you and I in particular, because this is really, for us, like the first exploration of Jane. And I really like this.
Yeah, definitely. We see the Jane confrontation of the father, which, you think about it, when you're dealing with, rape, when you're dealing with these traumatic events like that, you have those emotions where you're going through it and you're feeling, like it's your fault. What did I do to encourage this? And granted, in her case, she was a little girl. She did absolutely nothing, but there's still that feeling that it was her fault, that she's not clean, she's dirty girl and all that. And you see her go through that, and you see her step up, you see her rise up, and you see her take back what is her. Take back, you fight back, and whenever you're
Cliff showed her she's worth it too, though.
Right. Yeah, he was the inspiration.
Yeah, because
he was the
take me instead of her, you bastard.
Yeah,
right there in the face. She has to see that, and that's where she's looking. She had already felt this way about him, which is like you said in the beginning, why it was so important for Cliff to be the one there. And this one I just really ate up.
Yeah, and especially when, like, if you've ever had any dealings or seen stories or read about, with the rape counseling, this is the type of stuff that they'll help, victims go through, help them, realize that, hey, it's not your fault. You're not, to blame for this. This isn't, something, you asked for, you did, they were the bad guy, you're not the bad guy. And this is, you see her come to that visualization. You see her get her own strength back, and in this case, she, lashes out at the father. She stands up to him, puts him, back in, basically, I took it, kind of put him back into the well and locked him down there so he wouldn't hurt anybody else again.
I took it as she casted out that demon.
Completely gone?
She cast out the demon. This was her opportunity. She's now come full circle. She's faced this horrible person that she's always been afraid of, stood up to him now, and it's no longer has any power over her.
When she starts to fight back, you can see that his skin is really made of puzzle pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Where that says, I hate you, and you can start to see the puzzle pieces form in his skin and then crumbling. It's like she finally kills off that part.
Kind of breaking him apart the way she got broken apart by that event. This is her chance to give him back what he gave her, and what he did to her. It's die, you bastard, die in bits. I hate you. And it was just those moments where all the things she wanted to say to him, all the things she never got the opportunity to. This is her, and I think we see a manifestation here of Kay in her. We get to see her, finally, the daughter, stepping up, having a chance to say all the things, and realizing not only that this is her chance to say all those things, but she's right to do it. She's worth something. It was all, and it was one of those powerful moments. You see an empowering of the child who never had the chance to have that power. And I really liked that. It was really one of those moments where I was like, oh, yes, good for you. You deserve this moment. You deserve this moment for all it was worth. And I got worried at the end of the issue in particular where we see Cliff's brain kind of, like, I was wondering, I'm like, oh, they're not going to put...
Yeah, I knew they weren't
anytime
going
you
to.
do stories like that where you're fighting in the astral plane, I knew Cliff was going to be back. I didn't mean that Cliff was dead and gone, but I thought he was going to be gone for a lot longer than he was.
If they would have done that where this traumatic event leaves Cliff powerless, I would have been so pissed.
I didn't mean powerless.
I mean, like, but like kind of like messed up.
Like for a couple issues, you know, Cliff would be
in the jar. You know, Cliff in a
because if you die, if you die in the astral plane, there's always that concept that you die in real life and that type of thing. So
you missed my, or you just passed it over my singing. Hey, I've been good so far. I haven't done any much singing.
Any much singing?
I can't say any singing, but
yeah, you singing am good.
Hey, come on, cut me some slack.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the Christmas album.
If it's ever made, I'll send you my copy.
Oh, okay. Hey, man, I have a singing voice like an angel of death.
One that was cast out.
I was giving you one. Come on.
Yeah, I'm burning in hell for that comment.
I do issue 31 and the beginning of probably the weirdest story, the weirdest, coolest story that I liked and disliked at the same time. This was a severe, just weird ride that there were parts that I was like, oh man, this is great. And then there was like, what the hell? And it was such a weird roller coaster for me. But the funny thing is, after one read through, I knew what had happened in the story. Normally, I don't know what happens at the end of a Grant Morrison story. I got to reread it a second time. Now, when I reread it a second time, that's when I was able to see a little bit more, get a little bit more in depth. And I thought, okay, I have a pretty good solid grasp on it. Then when I read it a third time for my notes, I saw even more stuff. So with each reading, you do get a little bit more layering. You see a little bit more of the story. But the way this story was told, because he's jumping, boom, 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 flip-flopping back and forth between different stories, especially in the beginning, when we have no idea what's going on. I liked it because I was like, man, this is a different story style, but I disliked it because I was like, dude, what the hell are you doing here? And there's just been so much stuff that just... within that this first issue of this arc that happens that I'm like, I
say one thing. We haven't talked much about the covers. And this was just, you're talking so thematically about how this issue got so out there. The cover so totally matches what's going on there in this world. There's a very beautiful cover. And I will say that through all of this. It's one of the things that I really appreciate that collected editions now, it's become pretty much so the standard to have the covers in there. To me, I think there was a stretch there where it was kind of hit or miss whether or not you get the covers, and I think it's really so important when you're collecting a book because, I know from our friend Freddie Williams II, a lot of times the artist does the cover well in advance of the book, but that they're given information about what the book's going to be about, so they have an opportunity to thematically do a cover that will fit the piece, and it is, I think, interesting to see this opening tone because for all of us as we read the comic, that's kind of our opening glimpse into the book that sets a mood, a theme. This cover is a great example of one that just totally sets it's a wacky out there cover, but I really enjoyed this cover. I think it's a very good looking cover. And it was one of the ones out of the batch that stood out for me because it just set a tone for this cult of the unwritten word or the unwritten book. It was called the Unwritten Book.
Called the Unwritten Book.
Yeah, the cult of the Unwritten Book. How how this story was going to be a rather unique experience.
Definitely, this one really struck me as kind of an idea dump because if you think about all of the little minor characters and adversaries, you could take any one of those groups and you would have like significant villains for any number of comics.
Well, you're right. You could have done an arc on any of the adversaries that are presented within this whole thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
And he creates in this one issue an entire universe that we didn't know about beforehand. And normally, if anyone would even think about trying that, I'd say, dude, you're nuts. But because it's Grant, we know he's nuts, so we were like accepting. Oh, okay, yeah, you're gonna do this, and it worked for me. I a lot of this was inner dialogue boxes. It was the main character Kipling, explaining it to either the reader, explaining it to his own personal journal, however it was supposed to be intended, but it worked for me because of what we're dealing with. And I liked and disliked how the issue opened up. We join him right in the middle of his investigation into the cult of the unwritten book. And we have no idea who he is. We have no idea what this cult is, what the planning or anything. And he's just slowly feeding us the information. But he's not telling us, I'm doing this because of this. He's explaining what he's doing. Then eventually we see what happens. And that's where I like and dislike. I liked it because when I finally did learn, I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, man, this is a different story style. And then I disliked it because there's times when I just want to read a comic. I don't want to have to work at it. And you do have to kind of work at it with this one.
I ate this up, and I'll tell you why I ate this up. I ate this up for the same way that I ate up RIP. I agree with you in the sense that when you start off with the first issue, totally agree with your experience, too. The first issue I read of this, I was understanding what was going on, but I wasn't connecting with the whole mystery. Very similar to RIP, when I got a couple issues into this arc and then I went back and reread it, I totally understood what happened the first time around, but it was going back through knowing where things were to go and see how it was laid out. It reminded me very much of what I liked about the mystery in RIP. This mystery unfolds in a similar fashion. You get to see why Morrison used all these different characters to create this concept of the cult and what they really do, because each of the characters gives us kind of a glimpse into what the cult's all about and why they are so powerful, and the power of Dave was talking about this earlier. The power of language. The power of language in here is very prevalent because of the way that the various adversaries react to the different team members. Kipling, even the tattooed man that we see later.
Yeah, I was going to say also. I think it struck me as kind of funny what Jim was saying earlier or just now. He sounded like the physical embodiment of message board threads on Final Crisis.
Yeah.
Where he loved it that he could delve into it and get deep, and then he hated it because sometimes he wants a comic.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like the back and forth that goes on when people are discussing Final Crisis and also RIP.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why, though, a lot of what he's mentioning here is one of the reasons why I like having such a diverse reading list. I wouldn't want it. I love Morrison, and this isn't a negative thing, but I wouldn't want all my reading to be Morrison because every writer, I think, has a different approach to comics. And I think you get something unique in the experience that you get from each individual writer in the way that they approach writing. So, I reread my favorite writers. I always reread my favorite writers anyway. I reread Morrison for a different reason than I reread Gail Simone, Jeff Johns. And none of them. There's nobody that I would say is cookie cutter in that aspect. Right. I get something different out of all of them. In Morrison's case, there's a very different reason for rereading his stuff, but I enjoy that. I agree in the sense if I read a heavy Morrison story, I need to go read something else afterwards to just kind of get a different vibe, a different flavor. Take a little breather.
Definitely. I mean, doesn't matter what it is, if it's comic books, if it's novels, if it's music, nobody listens to just one thing. Nobody reads just one kind of story. We all have, varied interests. We all read and check out multiple genres of different things. We don't watch just one kind of movie. The same thing. Nobody nobody should, be stuck reading just one kind of author.
I read a lot of Stephen King, and I mean, I mentioned Doohickey last part of this, but one of the things I know when I go into a Stephen King book, for example, it connects with this in a certain way. I know with Stephen King, on some of his books, he spends a lot of time in the beginning giving you character background, letting you get to know the character. It's before, Stephen King, one of the things I like about him is we start getting into the creepy horror genre. And I usually like the way that goes because you get to know the characters so well in the beginning that when things really start going haywire, you care. The problem is a lot of times when he's doing the introductions to the character, there's parts where I need to walk away because there's not a whole lot happening yet. I know from good experiences with King that it's worth the payoff. Like I read The Stand, I read, a lot of those books where they're just big tomes. And the brilliance of his writing and what I enjoy about it is not for everybody, but for me, by the time we hit those crazy, wacky moments where everything starts to break loose, Friday the 13th is a great example. The camp counselors are there, and you know that they're cannon fodder. But there's very little emotional attachment except for the main two characters that ultimately you know are going to survive through the whole film because they're the only ones you really know. In his case, he really lets you get to know everybody, and if somebody dies, they actually really matter because you've gotten to know them so well. There are times when I read Morrison's work where he's doing a lot of introduction. There's some of that in these particular issues that you're talking about. But for me, at this point, I've read enough of him that I know that there's a payoff in sticking with it, rereading it, getting to really delve into what he does with these characters, that you get those brilliant moments where you're just like, whoa.
Yeah, and the other thing, with me especially, because, this is a mystic story, and that does take me a little bit to get used to. It does take me, to get my hands on the mystic story, especially because we don't know the rules of magic for this magical universe. So as he's telling us all this stuff, we have to learn and figure out what is going on with these guys, how they get their power, what's going on, and it's as I said, it's a massive universe that has to be created in one issue. So it's...
Yeah. I got to ask a question.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys in like your rereads of this want to grab the snow globe and shake it? Hey guys!
Well, what Jim was saying about getting introduced to this magical universe and not knowing the rules, I think there's so much to that, or to this specific magical universe, because first of all, you have Morrison's descriptions and Case's portrayal of these magical creatures or demons, and it's really unique, and because it's so unique, they're really frightening. I mean, we see the same old horns, hooves, and fangs all the time, and that stuff these days is about as frightening as Hot Stuff, the Little Devil, if you remember that character.
Yeah.
But these characters are just really frightening. I mean, and the magic that they talk about, or that comes up in this, is really rooted in the modern world. And usually when you read about magic in comics or magical characters, it has origins in like ancient Egypt or medieval Europe or Asia or places like that. But this is like magic of the modern world. And I think that's really unique.
And I got to completely agree with you on that, because, I don't know about you guys, but when I have like nightmares and, horror, type of dreams and whatnot, I'm not seeing your classic, horned villains and with pitchforks. I'm seeing super freaky guys like this, things that are just slightly normal, but they're missing something that makes them off the wall. And, Kipling is part of, he was part of this ancient arcane cult, but there is a modern spin on it. Like we'll see later on some of his modern usage of different stuff, that are regular, current, everyday stuff, with just a little bit tweaked to it, and just a little change here, and it's, bam, has some mystic power to it. And it was cool because I like that he explains it to us. Whether he explains it in the inner dialogue or he's explaining it to a member of the Doom Patrol later on. And we do learn this as it's going on, but there is that, kind of what's going to happen next type thing.
Do you realize every time you say whatnot on the show, you're giving members of the cult ammo? Because you explained you say whatnot when you're trying to find the word that you want to say, but you never really get to that word. Every episode of Raging Bullets has been an ammo refill for these people. You are partially responsible for this.
It's the cult of whatnot.
Jim, stop feeding the demons.
Yeah.
No, see, it's not this demons.
Right.
It's the cult of whatnot.
I kept looking for one of the pages for you to be on one of their ammo belts with a little watish.
You didn't do the symbol when you said it, man. You got to do the symbol.
No, because it's dirty. But I like this concept though, because they're ammo. Like in this case, the question that dared not be asked. You see them with those little skice up there, and they're holding it up in their hands, and they're taking from things. We all have those moments where there's things we can't say or don't want to say, whether it's out of courtesy, whether it's out of horror, whether it's out of, or we've forgotten words or, things like that. They're taking all of those things and they draw power off of all that. Now, when you think about the fact we all do that, we all have those moments. And there actually was a point to me saying I wasn't really just putting it on you. I apologize. There really was a point to all that. What you do, we actually all do that. And we all have those moments where we're, stuck for a word or things like that. That was the brilliance of all this. We all could connect with that because we've all been there.
Yeah.
We all give them ammo.
And the funny thing is, you're mentioning about that, I didn't even catch a lot of the little stuff like that on the first read-through. That's something where the second read-through, third read-through that you're pulling in this stuff. Yeah, I think part of it is because I was struggling so much to make sure I could understand what's going on that you don't delve into it. So this is just more argument why you got to read these things more than once.
Well, it also shows that this cult, why would they end the world? Because we give them a limitless power source.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, any person, even if we're down to only one person left, that person is ammo for them.
Did either of you guys read The Invisibles?
I did, yeah.
All right,
Jim,
well,
you haven't read that yet, have you, Jim?
A lot of the themes that come up in this about language and magic get really explored in The Invisibles. I think what we see is kind of like the first sketching out of those ideas in this arc.
Cool. Now, as we go through with Kipling and Eats...
I miss King Mob.
What?
I miss King Mob.
Yeah.
He's one of the characters in The Invisibles.
Oh, okay.
It was one of those... that was one of those Vertigo books that... It was when I didn't have the budget to read, the entire lines like I'm doing now and that type of thing to try and, keep up with the show. And it was one of those that... one of the Vertigo titles that I was reading had just ended. And I was looking for something to fill that slot because I always had a couple Vertigo titles in there. And I saw the first issue of Invisibles came out. And that was one I read monthly when it came out. I could not put it down. It's very much like this kind of ride. And it's I think you were mentioning last episode, Jim, or you've mentioned before when we talked about Morrison, like how do you read this stuff monthly? What ends up happening, it's part of the joy of it, you'll read those issues like what we've done with Final Crisis, for example, or with, and like we do with all of the books, actually, that you and I talk about on the show. You read it a few times during that month, and you get a lot of bang. At that time, I was reading a lot less comics because I didn't, it was during, college years, I didn't have the kind of budget. Because of that, I would read issues 2 and 3 times, and wow, did I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing that, because by the time the next issue came out, I really had a good grasp of what was going on in the first issue, so then I was, salivating to kind of delve into that experience. So you can read and really enjoy this type of work monthly because you have those times in between to do it.
Yeah, see, I didn't get into The Invisibles until maybe it was about this time... 2006. I ordered all the trades at once, and it was kind of one of those that I knew I was going to love, so I just got them all at the same time, and yeah, that was one of the best Christmas vacations ever.
Because I've got all the singles. I never even... Is all of it traded, Dave? Can you get the whole thing traded?
You can get it all, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if all of Invisibles... Well, that's nice, actually, because very similar. Because Preacher, I actually went back, and Preacher, I ended up getting back the entire run in trades because I just wanted it in that format. I might do the same thing for Invisibles because I think I would like that bound and like to enjoy it that way.
Yeah.
So I may go back and buy that. I've got the single monthly issues, but I don't have the trades. I think I might go back and get that in trades just for that purpose because I'd like to reread it, and it'd be fun to reread it in this format.
And the funny thing is, I think I have the first trade in my massive stack of trades to be read. I've never gotten to it, I don't think. I think I have it.
You'd really like that. You really would. So let's definitely check that out.
Yeah, I'll look through my pile, see if I have it, because I have a stack on my desk of trades to be read, and eventually I'll get to them.
It's definitely worth reading, and it's one of those that you can go back to again and again and again and always find something new and interesting.
Now, I like how we see Kipling deal with the fear of the sky. They arrive, and Kipling was surrounded by clocks, and he said it was an early warning system. We learn later on how that works. And once again, it was more of we see it, and then later on it's explained. We talked about just the power of the word, and as Kipling's basically reciting from the one book in his book, he's able to suck the fear of the sky, trap them in the book. Now, and it wasn't your traditional Alakazam, Hocus Pocus, Azarath, Metreon, Zinthos. It wasn't like different. Had to throw it in there. Yeah, it wasn't your...
Teen Titans used to come on TV over here. That was one of the few English language cartoons I saw. So yeah, I saw that all the time.
Every so often, you got to throw it out there, and I even do that with...
No, you don't.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do, man. It's awesome. Come on. Don't tell me you've never used that when you're like doing a magic spell or something like that. Use those words. It's like saying Invare Leviosa or whatever, that, with the Harry Potter stuff. You got to throw out weird, funky languages.
Jim, when we moved to this house, we left the cauldron at the old apartment. So,
oh, come on, dude.
We really don't do the magic spells around the dinner table anymore. I don't know what goes on in your household.
Yeah.
But you know what,
I don't know. If I had to guess, I'd say Jim was into the voodoo.
Yeah. Well, Jim, you know what? I've got some extra Eye of Newt that we don't need anymore. I'll give it to you on the way out. So
Eye of Newt. Double, toil and trouble. Cauldron burn and cauldron bubble. Yeah. Into throw poison, entrails go. Eye of Newt, tongue of toad.
Part of the reasons why Jim doesn't bathe is because he's afraid of water after seeing Wizard of Oz.
Come on, if anything, I'm the good witch.
Well, here's a question I have for you. If you're a good witch, does that mean that you don't need to be afraid of water? Do they melt too?
No, they don't, because it was the evil, or
Did they designate that it was? I don't remember. Did they designate that it was only evil witches that melted with water?
Evil is water soluble.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
that mean good witches are buoyant?
Yes.
Yeah, they can float. Well, if you think back to the old testing of back in the ancient days, when they're Salem witch trials, that's what I meant to say. When they were testing witches, they used to submerge people underwater.
But they never designated if it was a good witch or a bad witch.
Well, to them, all witches were bad.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So what is that? Why does that designate that a good witch would be safe? I don't understand.
Well, I would say that a good witch would react the way a good person would react, and they would simply drown in the water.
Oh.
Whereas the evil, demon witch,
better.
Would have lived when they
wouldn't
saw.
Melting be the way to go? Then in that case, I'd rather melt than drown.
But if you drown, back in the Salem trials, they submerged them underwater.
This is making me think Monty Python now.
I know we're on a way massive
It's made of wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is just really going in a direction I did not expect at all.
Well,
all right, basically, for those of you that are just tuning in, we've determined now that Jim is a witch, but we're trying to determine, because he's a good witch, whether or not he would melt.
Well, I was on the swim team. I was on the swim team in high school.
Are you made of wood?
I'm not made of wood, and I floated. Especially now, I have. I'm real buoyancy now. But
this is a messed up episode,
dude. Come on, you cannot go a little bit out there when you're talking some of this stuff. It leads that way, And I didn't even plan on going into the whole magic routine there, and it just happened. That's why,
because you bring them magic. I know. Yeah, I knew that's
Come
why
on.
I had to start it off. I knew you were going to go there.
See, I should have let you. I should have let you do it. Yeah, if you want, you can do it. Because I know you want to do the jazz hands. And yes, for those of you listening, I did do jazz hands when I did say that.
I don't think anybody else. I'm sure everyone listening goes, he actually did it.
Yeah.
I think they all know.
Yeah.
I don't think
we may have some new people listening who this is their first exposure to Raging Bullets, and they're wondering what kind of nut job.
I guarantee you that everyone listening, even if this is our very first episode, they're like, that dude's actually doing it. There's nobody that has any doubt. Nobody.
We know Jim's not a poser.
I'll be honest with you. They probably think you're going farther with it than you even are.
Okay, where were we? Oh, yeah.
We were talking about how they got put into the unseen playmate.
Yeah.
And he wants to search for the book of the fifth window.
Right. And it's... I'm so flustered right now. Well,
You're not really bringing much of the magic.
No, I'm not. I'm completely thrown off my game right now. Let me see if I can...
It's like that movie Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman. Sometimes the magic works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Now, see, here's where the new listener's like, dude just said he's bringing the magic and he's completely lost it. What's going on?
We mentioned how he has to pursue the fifth window, the book, whatever terminology you want to call this guy. I like that it's another where he throws it out there. We have no idea who it is, and then we kind of get our first glimmer of who the boy is, and all we see is this just dude, in the shower singing, and I'm just like, huh? It was one of those weird things. I was just like, okay, I hope to God they explain this somehow down the line. Now, granted, I knew they would eventually explain it. I knew eventually I would know everything that's going on, but talk about a way to introduce what is a really powerful, significant being in this universe. Just kind of very lightheartedly singing downtown and showering, and you're looking at him going, okay, what is that on his body? Are those etchings? Is that, tattoos? You couldn't really, and you don't know until later on what exactly his deal is, but, wow, just especially it adds to when you finally learn who he is, that, there was such a light and airy introduction to him.
Where this really worked for me is, and what I really like about this is, he gives you a chance to figure it out for yourself first. He lays out just enough for you where you can kind of connect with it first. But if you don't, because, a lot of times when an author does this, they're taking a risk of the sense that you can lose a reader at this point. What I like about him, though, is he doesn't leave it hanging there. He explains it. You do find out later, and it's laid out for you. But I like that you're given the opportunity to try and make your own evidence, to try and think for yourself on what might be happening here. And then later on, you get the opportunity to see it laid out. It may be what you thought. It may not be what you thought. But I think it gives it a unique experience in the sense that you get to play around with the comic. You get to play along and try to figure out what's going on. Because at this point in time, Kipling doesn't know.
Yeah, he's still looking for answers. Yeah. He's still investigating the mystery. Right. And it's this mystic mystery that, is unfolding before us that, as I said, it's a like and dislike of this. I liked how the fact that I had to figure this out, but I know if I wasn't in the place where I wanted to work for my comics, I would have been like, this stinks, I would have really just been like, oh, I don't want to work for it. I want my comics spoon-fed to me. And I go through periods where I'm hot and cold on that. And that's part of the reason why I have my palate cleansers when I need to just that nice, and I had to bring it up this issue as well. Come on. Or this episode, whatever this is called. But it's, you need that, refresher. And you need the meaty stuff like this. You need the mysteries like this. You need the fun, light, friendly stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's...
So just to clarify, this is not a palate cleanser.
Oh, God, no. I had to... Mm-hmm. I needed to read, Supergirl, a couple times, and just the various Tiny Titans and the absolute lightest, funnest stuff I had just to get my mind back to a place where I could actually speak.
Yeah, because I could actually see this episode, which is really nice, because your palate's not as shiny as usual.
Yeah.
I like this Cliff segment as we go into it right here, because one of the things that really struck me on this one, Robot Man does not have, because he's a robot, this is a guy who had a body at one point. You lose all sense, and this is actually explored throughout the next few issues as well, the fact that there's a lot of sensory deprivation that this man goes through on a regular basis. And you get to see how traumatic that can be and what you have to go through to learn how to deal with that. But not only do you lose that, like he eventually gains like a sort of sight, but when he opens up his eyes here, just how different that experience is for him, how vibrant everything is. Everything's alive. He's feeling like a human again at this point. He looks at the new body, what it looks like, but not only is it the look, it's the sense of smell is back. Taste is back.
Touch. He's feeling.
Right.
It was just, he's
all the
back to
senses work.
Who he was. Mm-hmm. For the first time, he actually felt like Cliff again, not Robot Man. Granted, he's in a metal body, and when he looks at it, it looks completely different than what he had before. A little bit sleeker, a little bit powerful looking. There are other improvements and upgrades and whatnot to the body, but the main thing I got was just because we saw before with Jane when he was just he was also the fragmented spirit. We saw Jane get some of her power back, get some of her strength back. Now we're seeing Cliff get some of that back again. He's like, he can hear stuff, he can feel. And I was just like, I really ate it up for it. I was just like, as I'm reading this, as I'm seeing this, I'm thinking, something's not going to go well here. Things are going to happen to this guy and I felt bad for him because I wanted him to have this type of body. I wanted him to have these type of feelings and experiences, and in the end, I knew it wouldn't happen.
Well, that it wouldn't last, yeah.
Right, yeah. You get that, and that actually makes it even worse. When you lose something and you get it back just for a little bit and then it gets taken back away from you, that second time it's taken from you is even harder than the first. Because that first time you had it, you adjust, you deal, you figure, okay, I'm never going to have this again. And then you get it, you're like, yes, I'm back. I'm back to where I was before. And it's, even harder to deal with. And I can imagine, when Cliff eventually has to leave this body and go back to his old shell, how that's going to deal with him, how that's going to mess with him. And I was kind of, one of the things I'm looking for future trades to see if they delve into that, if they, deal with that.
One of the things I really liked in rereading this was the fact that when you take a look at this segment with Cliff, you get to see how early we got to see the snow globe.
Yeah.
The snow globe was there right at the beginning of this issue, straight on through. And, for such an important object for this arc.
And this was one of the things, once again, it's that flip-flopping style that Morrison does, where he does a part, does a part, does a part. We're going back and forth between a mystic segments with Kipling. He needs to consult that oracle, that Baphomet. Baphomet? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had no idea how to pronounce that one. Thank you. He goes from there to the science. We have the mystic, side to the science. We have the human nature versus this super freaky horse with a spike in its head. And it was going back and forth. And, when everything is said and done, you understand what's going on. But as I was going through, I was like, okay, what's happening here, huh? And it's that, as I say, I like and dislike it. If I'm in the groove, I'm like, man, this is awesome. If you stumble just a little bit, it can cause a downward spiral that you're just like, what's going on here? And
now, let me ask you a question. Like in a case of an author like this, where that a reread's worth it to reconnect with it, is it a hard experience? And there's no right or wrong answer to this, so it's not an issue of, this isn't an argumentative thing. Do you find that, you go back and reread and it's a chore to reread it? Or do you find, because I'm sure it's different for every person. Like in my case, I have no problem rereading. I hit those moments during reading parts of this where I had to go back and read pages over again. I got done with a couple pages and I'm like, huh? And I went back and I reread them. Now, there was not a negative experience in that for me. I knew, all right, I want to get a handle on this so I understand future things that are going to go on. I know with Morrison, it's worth doing that. But there were points in this when I was reading it where I definitely had, moments where I was just like, whoa, I don't know what just happened. So I went back through and I reread, and then I started to get a handle on it. Do you, actually this is for both of you guys, do you run into those experiences, and is it hard for you then to reread those sections? Do you not run into them at all? Jim, it sounds like you definitely do. Is that hard for you to do? Does it just take away or detract from your reading? For me, it doesn't, because I know this author. I'm going to do that, and it's worth it for me. But that doesn't mean that that's everybody's experience. What's yours like?
Grant, I have no problem whatsoever rereading it again, because I know I'm going to have to. I know there's no way I'm going to get this thing first time through, and it's something that you got to do it. And in the end, I have confidence in his writing enough that I know after the second or third read through, I'm going to enjoy the story. It's just, I also won't, he's never my first pull on a read, even though I'm excited about it, just because I have to be mentally prepared for him.
Okay.
If, when the issue, when Final Crisis first comes out, I so want to know what's going on, but if I'm not in the proper state of mind to read it, I don't, because it will throw me off. When Final Crisis came out this last time, I picked up Final Crisis, and I also had a couple other stuff that I read. I didn't jump to Final Crisis initially. I actually read Green Arrow, Black Canary, because I knew I could go read that, get a groove.
That's the first one with the new author, isn't
it? Right, it's the first one with the new author. I knew I'd get a grasp on it, and I'd get in the groove of reading, and I could use that issue to unwind from my day. Then after reading that, I was in the proper mindset to read Grant, and I pulled out Final Crisis, and I read that. And, it's, I read it, I reread it a second time right away. And then I waited, the next day and reread it a third time again. It's one of those things where I knew it was a process. I knew I needed time, and these are what I normally do with his writing. So it's just it's just what you got to do for me.
For me, rereading is a joy. I absolutely love it, and in some ways, I almost feel cheated if I don't have to reread something, because I love getting into the text and just going crazy with it, reading it, looking at things or finding things that I didn't see the first time, making connections that I didn't make the first time. I do it with movies. I watch movies that I like. I'll watch again and again. Music, I'll listen again and again. I do it with everything.
That's been probably one of the great things about doing the show for me, has been, I will admit, before I used to only reread books when I didn't understand them. Mm-hmm. That was exclusively I didn't understand this, so I want to go back. I'm like, I paid for this. I want to get a handle on it. And then my experience has always been when I didn't understand it after I reread it, and I did, and I got into it, I found it a very worthwhile experience. And I really enjoyed the process. Because once it clicks, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. As long as I have that experience and I get to that point, it's well worth it for me. If I don't, and you're still left with that point where I'm like, huh? Then, you never connect with the story, and that becomes a huge problem. So I get that if you don't connect with a story, that's going to be something that's going to be off-putting to anybody. For me, I always, I do, after multiple read-throughs, I will connect through the story, so it makes it a worthwhile investment. One of the joys of the show has been that's not the only reason I reread. I reread now favorite issues. I reread, and for the same reason that you're saying, Dave, I will take something, I may have understood it completely the first time through, but I will go back through a second or a third time, and I will make connections with that story. I completely understood it the first time through, but then I'm seeing, wait a minute, it's not just that you understood it the first time through. The second and third time through is where, because of the fact that you've already had that exposure, then you make deeper connections. You see things that are not on the page. You make you go beyond the story. You expand upon the story, and that to me is worth rereading. So I would, multiple times on the show since we've been doing this, I've been encouraging people, not just for understanding, take your comics and reread them just for the joy of going through and expanding that experience and getting something different out of it than you got the first time through, because you've already owned that. And that to me is a pure joy of taking comics. Comics are expensive now. There's no two ways about it. In this day and age, we're putting down a nice chunk for them. So whatever your pull list looks like, make sure you're pulling books that you're enjoying to the point that you want to reread them and you want to enjoy that rereading experience, because, get every bang you can for the buck. It's well worth revisiting your titles to maximize that enjoyment experience of it.
And also, future issues, future runs on things can also shed new light on or make you look at things that happened in the past in a different way. Like, I've been going back and rereading Morrison's JLA run, with Final Crisis and RIP happening, and, I see things, and I read those several times and got a lot out of them and enjoyed it quite a bit. But now with everything that's happened recently with Final Crisis and RIP, I'm seeing new possibilities and things that didn't exist before but could possibly exist now.
Yeah, he said that thematically in interviews, he said that he's been setting up these themes or exploring these themes. I shouldn't say setting up necessarily. He's been exploring these themes since his JLA run. So a lot of the things we are seeing play out now are things that he has been toying around with for quite some time.
Yeah, and we kind of just brushed on it, but I really liked the interaction between Cliff and Jane when we see it. Cliff in his new body, he's got these sensations. Jane comes in. Well, first off, he gets that snow globe as kind of like a present, for saving her life. And we get the introduction to the snow globe. But then when we see Jane, she's like, "Oh, Cliff, you're great, yeah." And she's all huggy. And as soon as she was doing it, I was like, but something's off here. And we find out that it's Baby Doll. And I love just that reaction, because we knew who Baby Doll was. Seeing it, I was thinking, is that maybe? And then Jane comes back, and Jane is upset. "Oh, that's Baby Doll. I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry." Like that. And she's trying to get control back over. But you're seeing, though, that this is, things are moving, and they're back to kind of quote-unquote normal for Jane. Baby Doll didn't seem like she was a traveler that much inside the world. I thought they mentioned that she usually just stays right where she is. So for her to come out and for her to address Cliff, I thought that was a real something that spoke volumes of a change in Jane as well.
The other thing that's really important here too, if you take a look at the snowflake section, Cliff makes mention of the fact that when he's holding the snow globe, I can hear the snowflakes falling like voices. And when we find out later what's in this snow globe, that is really an important foreshadowing of what's actually in that globe and what that is. It's not a plastic piece of material inside there. There's actually something living and vibrant and inside that place that they're going to have to confront.
Yeah, and of course, as this is going on, we're also seeing Kipling doing his mystic ritual, discussing things with the bodiless, the head of the horse, and just the very So you have this raw emotional, then this mystic mystery unfolding. We're seeing these different characters and or villains being introduced and hunting down the fifth window, the dry bachelors, an explanation of who they are, how they came to be, and just how nasty they are. The mystery kites, the never boys, all these things are it's like this introduction, and they're all hunting down this one person. And it really just, it built for me. Who is this kid? What is so important about him? What can he do? Because, I still really didn't have a clue from the stuff from Kipling because he's unfolding and it was making sense to him, but it didn't make a damn sense to me. And I was just like, okay, I got to know what's going on here. And that was part of the, as I said, like and dislike. It was disliked because I wasn't being spoon-fed, but it was liked because I was like, yeah, I got to know more. I was excited to read just to finally understand what the heck was going on. Just to have that moment of the, oh, cool. And later issues, when we see what this is, we see how important this kid is, we see why this cult is throwing everything at him. I was like, man, this is a cool, villains. These are a cool, hierarchy kind of within the villain sect, as well as strategy on their part. They didn't just send one group, oh, you failed, go. No, they said boom, boom, boom. They're flooding the area trying to find him. And I liked seeing that, it's that, constant on the run. You're bobbing and weaving. It's a Jackie Chan movie. Hit here. Move and stick and move type stuff. And I ate that up, especially second time through when I knew who this kid was. And I knew how important it was. I really got that feeling. You can kind of like, as I'm reading it, I can hear the kind of theme as he's running and, trying to stick and move. I was just like, I ate that up.
You're scaring me because I'm pretty sure somewhere during all that you fed them ammo.
Yep. Multiple times, baby.
I'm sorry.
Multiple times, man. Yeah, right here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm finding this so funny with this story. You guys seen The Shining?
Yes.
Many times.
Yeah. There's something so creepy about little kids when they're in horror movies. And when I'm thinking of Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod, the Never boys, you see them riding around on the tricycles chasing after this guy, and I'm like, that is... Out of all the weird and unusual things we see in this, it's probably, to me, the most horrifying segment because you got these kids riding on tricycles with gas masks on, and it just, to me, it looked really creepy. Because not only, they're not just riding on the ground, they're riding on the ceiling, riding on the wall, riding wherever. I mean, it just is really... There's something about little kids in movies like that, and The Shining was one of those classic examples of one where I'm like, probably and The Omen, the original Omen. I'm going back to the original one with the music and that little boy and all that stuff. The remake was pretty creepy too, but the original Omen, you go right back to that original concept, probably one of the most terrifying horror movies I've ever seen because they take these little kids and, ooh.
Can't watch it. Can't watch The Omen.
Yeah.
I can't watch Children of the Corn. The little kid, creepy little kids, demonic possessed little kids. I have massive issues with it. Poltergeist, even, I had a hard time getting through just because of the little girl. They're here. That freaked me out. And just seeing that, I was like, I ain't watching that. So I gotta. For me, it's
Well, also, when you brought up The Shining, they're riding tricycles in a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very evocative of The Shining.
Yeah, and really, that one of the creepier horror movies I've seen.
Same here. I love that movie.
I was just laughing because I know what I'm going to decorate my house for next Halloween. The part where you've got to walk up to the house, I'm going to have decorated with corn stalks and Chucky dolls.
Did any of you guys ever see The Village of the Damned?
Yes,
Old movie, 1960.
absolutely.
That's a great one. Another creepy kid movie.
No, I haven't seen that one.
I'm a huge horror movie fan. I love horror films, and especially classic. I love classic ones. I've seen all.
Yeah,
the
same
Hitchcock
here. That's
movies
that's where I eat classic horror.
Yeah. There were such things that they did in classic horror, and this has this vibe to it, where you don't have to show us every little detail. It's sometimes setting up a scene and a mood, and then walking away from it and leaving us to wonder what happened. That a lot of times is a great way in your head. You imagine if the scene is set up properly, what you imagine in your head is far worse than anything they could have shown us on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And that was this. It's one of the reasons why I brought all this up, because we don't really see a whole big resolution to the kids on the tricycles.
Well, we kind of see it, and I liked what happens when you're a nosy neighbor.
Yeah.
You're like, hey, what's going on here? You get sucked into the wall, or because that wasn't just a destroyed. That was, I don't know what the heck. What they did to the guy? It's like they made him not exist, but he still existed. Kind of like they turned him phantom type. Infused him into the wall. I was like, dude, wrong place, wrong time, dude. Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess what I mean.
Shadow.
Yeah.
I guess what I mean there is, like, you normally see in a horror movie, you see the villain defeated on some level. In this particular case with the kids on the tricycle, we never see them defeated.
Yeah, he just outruns them, so they're still out there looking for him.
Right, which to me is, it's one of those things that you're left with this impression that these kids are still running around and things like that. You don't see the resolution of the kids. Is what I guess what I'm getting at there, which I found that thoroughly creepy. Because you're always left with, they're still there somewhere.
and even just as they're going on, Kipling's explaining to us, to whoever he's talking to, where he's just explaining what's further the freakiness going on in the city. And more mystic elements are being introduced, like the Needle Children, the Sky Spirit, doing the writing in there, and it does some broad strokes, and then it gives just a little piece of some of the stuff that's going to later play out big. And like the gash in Emilio Huervo's hand. They just introduce it, but they don't go into in-depth in it. Whereas with like the Needle Children, they're explaining how, they're causing mischief and they're doing this. The Sky Spirits scrolling through the skies for like a half hour or so, same thing. The big, mouths flying around, the mouthless bodies flying around, causing their chaos. And I like that it was, you get some of this where and it's painting the broad picture, but then it just gives you the introduction on, it makes you wonder, what's so important about that hand? What's going on with the hand? Who is this guy? Is he going to play out? Is he part of the cult? Is he a victim? Who is he? And I liked that it was just, laying down this mystery, and it was laying out more. And especially when we learn who the guy is and why he is, I was like, oh, cool.
I like that it sets up impossible chaos, and the cliffhanger of the issue is we see for the first time the people that are going to try and deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
It was a really interesting ending because it really is, everything's a mess by the end of this issue, and it was a really nice setup.
That's a great picture too.
Oh yeah,
yeah, with the Doom Patrol and Kipling standing there, they kind of have the pose going. They're like, okay, it's time. Heroes in the house. Let's do our thing.
It reminds me of what I liked about Vinyl Underground. It's like this dark, edgy mysteries that nobody else will want to touch. It gives them kind of their own flavor. I think it's one of the keys of if you're going to do a different sort of team book and you want to get a hook to it, you need to do something. It's what I liked about Shadow Pact. The stories felt like something that wouldn't fit in Justice League. This wouldn't be the type of mystery that you would see pop up in Justice League. It just doesn't fit their MO. It is a team like Doom Patrol that would be investigating this type of thing. It's not big enough, if that makes sense. It's huge in the sense that the world could be destroyed. But I mean, it's such an off-the-wall, crazy little thing. It seems like it would happen in a pocket versus happening.
It's not direct enough.
Yeah.
It's not direct enough. I mean, JLA, those threats are just on the nose. They're usually big 500 feet tall monsters or demons, and they're destroying places. This is just not that direct.
Yeah, and they're so busy dealing with that, they would not be able to investigate things like this. Because if they wasted their time doing this type of thing, it would take them away from those big threats, and we'd be overrun. So I like that there's teams out there that need to be strike forces to handle it. They fit in the universe. It really does feel like there's room in the DC universe for these type of characters to do this type of thing.
And issue 32 opens up with, once again, another introduction of another, piece of this mystic society that I thought was like really cool. But I also
My favorite.
See, you know what? I say I agree with you, but once again, like with anything with this story arc, there's like and dislike. I like the notion, the concept behind the Pale Police, how these are these assassins. They study the fingerprints of their victims to get understanding and who they are. And then they etch that fingerprint into their helmet. And, as you're seeing these things, it's like the bands and there's the big giant face, big giant mouth on their chest and this really cool, nasty look. But the one thing I read that had me really worried was the fact that they only spoke in anagrams. I was like, oh dear God, I'm in trouble.
Did you look up the anagrams?
See, there's some anagrams I had no idea what the heck they said.
Well, I looked them up. I've got them all.
Oh, okay.
I'll give them to you.
Oh, okay, cool.
We can actually chat about them as we get to them. There's an important part you're leaving out from the initial Pale Police. They studied the thumbprint, or the thumbprint, for the purpose of trapping the soul. Not only do they kill them, they trap their soul in the maze of their own thumbprint. I mean, talk about twisted. It's what's a fate worse than death? Your soul is trapped. Now, we all, when you think about it, religion, and one of the reasons why if you believe in religion, some people don't, there's nothing wrong with that. We all have different religious beliefs or whatever faith you are, for the exact purpose of the fact that we all try to make sense of our existence and where we can go. A lot of religions are focused on the concept of the soul. And a lot of people find solace in the fact that your soul's going to go somewhere after you die. It's all like, is this it? Is it, are we finite or are we infinite? We all want to believe we're infinite, that we're going to go on forever. I think to a certain extent, that's where reincarnation and things like that come in. To have your soul trapped into a thumbprint maze, never able to escape, is a horrifying concept, because that means you're infinite, but you're trapped infinitely, forever.
Yeah,
what a creepy concept.
These characters were awesome.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh God, yeah. And it was one of those, as I said, as I'm going there, I'm like, oh, these are going to be some cool, that's just a neat, you think about your killers, you think about your professional assassins. They're not your crazy people, wacky, thing. No, these are professionals. They're going to concentrate. They're going to focus. Those are the best killer scenes for me in any type of movies, when you have these intelligent, who they're not acting out of emotion or response, just the job. This is what I do. I'm the best at what I do type, mentality. And so definitely with these guys, I had that whole mindset that they're just like, boom, 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 out there. And so right from the beginning, I was like, okay, this is going to be an interesting issue. I
really respected, though, they crafted a villain, though, to me, that is more horrifying than any other villain. Because in this case, have me possessed by Parallax, I'll take on a Sun Eater. That, to me, is a lot less horrifying than being trapped in my own thumbprint. I mean, it really is, because you have a shot at coming back.
Also, there's something that Kipling alludes to in the next couple of pages about this group called the Men from Nowhere. And they're interesting because, and you see them in the third trade, and they speak only in acronyms of nowhere. Like now on, we are like that. It's so strange. Everything they say is an acronym of nowhere. Oh,
God. That's going to be an interesting read for me, because I'll tell you, I do have issues with, with anagrams, and like when we see Zatanna with her, when she's casting a spell, sometimes I literally have to write down You know, I have a scratch. I have
the
paper.
backwards speak?
Yeah, with the backwards speak.
Because that's not an anagram. That's backwards.
Right, I know. That's what I'm saying. But like stuff like that, where it's different type of languages and just where they jumble stuff up. I was one of those kids in elementary school who couldn't speak Pig Latin. I couldn't get it. I couldn't understand. I still have problems with it today. It's just there's something, you know, with that type of weird speak like that. That's partially why I invented my own language. Why I had my own little words out there, because I don't get the real world and the real dialogue.
What's your own language?
Well, you know, contabulation, you know, whatnot, and what it, you know, no, what, you know, yeah. So it's, you know, these different the Segiisms that I have out there.
Well, I was saying that your language was called Whatish.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
So you consider 3 words a language?
Hey, one word is a language.
Oh, there you go.
One word is a language, especially if it's the right word. And it's a word I'm not going to say because, you know, we have little children listening right now, and I'm not going to be the one to teach them the granddaddy of all swear words. But you think about that word, you can use it in multiple different ways. You know, for, you know, excitement, joy, anger, you know, just you pick an emotion, just that one word, you know.
My mouth is pure. So, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. You're about as... I'm not going to say.
Wow. You're bitter.
Yes. Okay, fine. I was going to say your mouth is about as pure as a certain rest stop on the PA Turnpike.
Wow.
Yeah. Still have nightmares
I'll
about that
take
place.
your word for that one.
How do you know so much about my mouth?
Let's get back to the book, shall we? You know, we're here to do a podcast. We're here to talk about...
I didn't bring it up.
Now, as we're seeing Kipling and the Doom Patrol deal with, you know, the book, the boy, whatever. How are we going to refer to the guy?
The book.
The book? Okay. As we're seeing him deal with the book, I do like the fact that he didn't know he could trust him. He was like, hey, you know, and he's getting ready to run because that's all he does. He runs, he, you know, avoids them. And I chuckled because I was immediately thinking Kipling's argument. You know, if we were with the cult, we would have filleted you by now. They're sitting there talking to him, trying to help him. They're not, obviously not the cult. Now, granted, that would be a great way for the cult to get into him because we've seen it before, multiple various, you know, forms of entertainment where the bad guy goes up, hey, I'm with you. I'm your buddy. I'm your pal. You can trust me. And, you know you can't, but, you know, it's kind of a neat concept there. And then as they're slowly trying to build the trust, in come the Hiroshima shadows. And another thing, and it's something we see throughout the rest of this trade, I don't know if Kipling likes to fight as much as he likes to drink.
He doesn't like to fight at all. He's a coward. He's an out-and-out coward. He stands in the background saying, that's it. That's the spirit. Once more into the breach. He stands back and does nothing.
Now,
He's a terrible guy.
He did nothing.
Now, here's one thing I was wondering, and it's later on.
There's no gray area there.
Hold on. How much of it, though, part of me also kind of wondering, because I did see initially the coward and the sit back drinking and, you know, smoking and just, you know, the general, not your quote-unquote hero things, but I also wonder, is there a chance that maybe this was kind of like a testing, or he was guiding and trying to strengthen, you know, inspire the Doom Patrol to reach up and step up and be the heroes?
I'm sure he'd say yes, but it's just not true. Yeah, there's lots of justifications for that behavior. None of it's true. He should have been out there fighting with them. The dude's a coward.
I like this guy. Hey, it's not a coward. He was hanging back.
No, he was called on it by the Doom Patrol. Dude's a coward.
No, he was hanging back by the book, making sure the book was safe. And he was, you know, locking in, securing with them that, hey, see, look at what they're doing. They're fighting the bad guys. We're the good guys here. He was trying to instill that confidence that the book had him.
You know what would make him a lot safer? Stomping out the enemy that's trying to kill him. Or trying to take him in this case, because they're not trying to kill him at this point. They're trying to take him. But still, let's stomp out the enemy. Hey, you know what? Be perfectly safe.
Well, unless that bottle he's holding up has some sort of magical significance, I'm kind of with Sean in this one.
So am I. Honestly, I'm just arguing for the fun of it. But you know, he did. You know, I was looking for when I was reading this, more redeeming qualities in him. All
I
seriousness.
love point of clarification. I love the character.
Yeah.
So that's
great
not
character.
Yeah.
That's why I was looking for. I was like, man, I like the guy, and I was hoping there was like a hidden motive behind it, not the obviously thing, which I'm convinced it is. But I was like, it makes you wonder if you were a hero, if you weren't a hero, if you were in those type of circumstances where you're surrounded by these weird and goofy stuff, what would you do? Would you step up and help out, or would you be this guy? Cheers, guys, kick ass, yeah, hoorah! I'll celebrate for you.
Wait, in the Signs of Intense Danger, we see it later. Get away! Don't let it see you with that shroud of stilts as it's going by the window. Dude's like, completely like, get me away from all this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's also interesting. I read somewhere that Willoughby Kipling came about because Morrison couldn't use John Constantine.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where I read that, but I read it somewhere.
See, Constantine in this would be awesome. That character, he would fit in.
It would have changed the whole dynamic, though.
Yeah, well, but you still could have told pretty much a very similar story.
Well, I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm just saying it would have been interesting to see this told with Constantine there. Because I don't think you wouldn't have done the whole cowardice thing on this level with Constantine.
Oh, no, and he would have been. But actually, Constantine would have. I could see Constantine being with, the book, making sure the book, like kind of making himself the last line of defense.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of the scenes would be similar, but they wouldn't be. There'd be differences with it.
Be a different atmosphere attached to it.
Right, yeah.
One thing I noticed in this storyline and in the previous Crazy Jane issue, you see sometimes these phrases pop up that are associated with religion, particularly Christianity. Like, they talk about the blood of the Lamb and the Word made flesh. And here you see those things, which I think is very interesting.
I do like how themes reoccur.
Yeah.
And they're, used in ways that are appropriate to the situation, too. They're not forced. Does that make sense? They just kind of naturally kind of flow in where they're appropriate to the story. Because you could run into a real dangerous spot where you're forcing some of those themes down the throat just because you want to get them in. Mm-hmm. They just have a very natural flow into the various storytelling, and they're there where it fits.
Yeah. And as we've said multiple times as we're talking about this the power of the words and just the power of the spoken word and the unspoken word. And I like when we finally see what the book is. We finally see what he is and what's so significant about him. This was a cool story for me. We have when God first created the universe, let there be light. The first shadow cast was his own. And I was like, oh yeah. So you have the shadow of God is the anti-God. And by invoking its name, you can invoke decreation, which I've read multiple books. I've seen different movies where they talk about, if you could say the name of God backwards, you would decreate the universe. There's just, kind of a theme that's run multiple times. And I loved seeing it in this book, being used in this environment because it fit and it just, the story, you've seen these freaky villains going after it. You have this one path that, this one guy who could, in its, inadvertently lead to the complete destruction of the universe. So I was like, damn, that's kind of cool.
In many ways, they're like undoing all kinds of things. Because if you look at people, they turn, like with the little kids on the bike, they turn that guy into a shadow of himself. And then we're seeing, things get unwritten as this story goes on. There seems to be a lot of undoing of things as a way of, so that fits the whole decreation theme as well.
Now, when the book was born, he was born with those tattoos on him. Now, did he know from the very beginning what he had on him? Or, because I was still a little bit shaky on when and how he learned what those tattoos were.
Are you asking if his mom dumped him in calamine lotion?
I don't know. I'm like,
he's got this really bizarre purple or blue chicken pox.
Yeah. Or even, once he learned that, hey, I have the word of decreation on me, you'd think he'd say, okay, cover up the rest of my body so you can't see.
Well,
get like
symbols,
a really,
though,
yeah.
because they've got to be decrypted.
Right.
So to answer your question, I don't think he knows what they are. This guy Kipling is now revealing for the first time exactly what those are.
Oh, okay.
So to him, they're just, a whole bunch of tattoos and symbols. Because you look at them, I mean, they're not, we can't read them.
Right.
You would need somebody to decipher them.
Well, I could, but I didn't want to decreate the universe.
Well, go ahead.
I said I don't want to decreate the universe.
Better safe than sorry.
Exactly. You can't. Hey, these are powers beyond your comprehension.
You want to a little bit.
These are from a different plane of existence.
Come on, you're thinking.
You're
about
not
it.
ready yet.
It's like
you're still too young.
It's like the mysterious red button in the White House. You want to push it.
The big button that says "Don't push." I gotta push it. It says "Don't push it."
You want to do a little decreation, don't you, Jim?
Well, there are certain things I wouldn't mind decreating.
Okay. Such a bizarre conversation.
I don't know. I think it's interesting, the universe in the hands of Jim. That's just, I'm down with that.
Here we go. It has begun.
I'm moving to another plane of existence.
As we talked earlier about just the modern spin on magic and the usage of the thing, just usage of bringing magic spells up to date, not having the old-fashioned type of Alakazam type stuff. We definitely see that, coming up as they're trying to figure out the piece of the puzzle. Kipling's trying to figure out who has the gateway, who has the gash, and he pulls out that concept of the holy pop, which I was like, oh... 7-Up blessed by a defrocked police that can erase the names from the phone book, except the one person who has the gateway on him. I just like, damn, that is cool. And earlier we saw him use a sparkler to create a gateway to get into the Doom Patrol Palace. We see him talk about later on postcards, using postcards, as some type of spell. These are just pulling out everyday occurrences, everyday things that you want to, just wonder what they can do.
Now, I drink 7-Up.
Right.
Where do you get that one? Because, I mean, like, I've seen Diet 7-Up, regular 7-Up, all that stuff. They've experimented with flavored 7-Up. I've never seen the one that's been, like, blessed by a defrocked priest.
It's kind of a do-it-yourself thing, I guess.
Yeah.
No, we don't have.
Like
we don't have Lawson's
modern
there.
World.
We don't have Lawson's here. Did they have it at Lawson's?
Well, if you want, I can try blessing it and see what it does.
Are you a defrocked priest?
No, but who knows? Maybe 7-Up from a whatnot will do something else.
Have you been defrocked?
Well,
but you see this magic. You see this magic world, this magic of the modern world, and I think that's really unusual. And I hadn't really seen it before this. I thought that was really cool.
You see, I like magic exploration. I think that there's a whole concept of the whole thing. Like I said, that's why I like books like Shadow Pact, Rain in Hell. I'm enjoying that miniseries right now. I like the exploration. I mean, I know that's not directly magic, so to speak, because we're dealing more than with I take that back. We are, because a lot of your magic heroes are directly involved in that one.
It's supernatural. You can say supernatural.
Yeah, exactly. I like there is that whole avenue of the DC universe that is creepy in its own way that would require specialists, because it's the underbelly. It's the dark underbelly. It's a spot that isn't in your face. And it adds to me another layer to the universe. It's a cool area. So I'm glad that they're doing more with it now in current continuity, because I do think that we need to see more of this little layer of the universe.
Yeah. You think about like Buffy the Vampire Slayer had kind of like a way on with Willow as she was expanding her power as a witch and a Wiccan. She kind of brought like the cyber witch type concept to that series, and it's the same type of modernizing magic, bringing it to the 20th century. So it's definitely a cool concept, and I would like to see more of that in dealing with magic. We had Shadow Pact that had some cool stuff with it, but in the end, it was more based on the classic traditional type magic style. And even when we saw, Mary Marvel in Countdown, with her dealing with Satana, it was still that old style magic, and this new change that was going on in Mary. I don't know. I think we have an opening out there that could be used either better or developed, or just give us something a little bit different.
Well, again, if you read The Invisibles, the Invisibles really explores like magic in the modern world, and using computers and everyday things for divination or whatnot. I said it. And yeah, that gets really explored in the Invisibles.
The second he said whatnot, Jim, a mouth appeared over your shoulder. It's like,
Every time you say
to
whatnot, an angel gets its wings.
I'd like to see more defrocking in the DC universe in 2009.
More defrocking?
Yeah.
Well, I think we're seeing some of that going on in Final Crisis. So
There's a lot of defrocking going on in there. You're right. Maybe we'll have a defrocking month where every issue features a picture of a defrocked character.
Though we learn, of course, that Emilio Huervo is the gateway, and that's where the Holy Pop came in to tell us. But also, he's in a little bit of a situation because that's also where we first see the beginnings of the Pale Police, and they're going up to him. Basically, I took it they were leading him somewhere. Now, I had no idea what the heck they said. They were like, a tough wee tray. Okay? No idea. I tried to figure that one out. I was, looking. I'm like...
You are the gateway.
You are the gateway. Oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I see it now. Yeah.
See, I didn't know that one. I knew Runetown Hero and Hornun Tor, Nowhere to Run, both of them.
Yeah, Gap 9 HP is happening.
Ah.
Oh, okay. See, I actually, that Nowhere to Run, I knew run had to be a word. And I'm thinking, he said run to, and I'm like, run to what? And I couldn't figure out what. Yeah, so Nowhere to Run.
I want to give a shout out. This website I went to, it's called Monmouth, MONMOUTH.com. And they had the solutions to all the anagrams from Doom Patrol 32 by page.
Really?
Yeah, so I just did a web. It's one of the, like I said, we've talked about this last episode. It's one of the great things about the internet now. Stuff like this. I'm like, okay, I want to know what these mean. Yeah. And apparently I didn't want to do the work, so I printed them out.
Yeah, see, I tried it the old-fashioned way, hard work, and just, writing it down, rewriting the different possible accommodations.
I just want to read the story and move on. Yeah. Here they are.
What was that site?
It's MONMOUTH.com, Monmouth.com.
Okay.
And they had Doom Patrol number 32. It's the solution. The actual title of it was Solutions to Anagrams in Doom Patrol 32. So if you type that into Google, I'm sure that'll pop up immediately. They had all the pages, right? Page 8, 13, 16, and 16 to 17. It was very cool. It's very cool.
Yeah, I got it up. All I'm seeing is Monmouth Telecom.
All I've got in front of me is the printout at the moment, not the direct link. I will make sure to put that in the show notes, though, for anybody that wants to click on it and actually have that in front of them or see them. I'll put the actual direct link on there. It was the website was run by Colonel GL SICHERMAN, and I don't know if that's the person who did it or whatever, but I will make sure to put a direct link to that website. I thought it was very cool. That somebody did.
That's actually neat, yeah.
And I had no doubt this would be on the internet. I don't know. It's one of the nice things now. Comics are gotten to the point right now where there's a whole internet culture to the whole thing. I'm like, I'll just grab them off the net. So literally when I came across the first one, I looked on the net and I'm like, oh, there they are.
Cool.
That internet thing, I think it's going to catch on. Now, it was weird because at this point in time, we see the team split up. And whenever a team splits up, I always have the exact same reaction. What the heck are you guys doing? Do you really think this is a good idea? Especially because they only had really one mystic/occult expert in the group. Cliff is going off to track down Emilio, but when he finds the guy, he's not going to know how to seal up the wound. He's not going to know what to do when he gets there. Jane is staying with the Fifth Window, but she, she's a fighter. Yeah, she's a butt kicker, but she's not going to know what to expect when the baddies come after this guy, and we know they're going to come after it. And then, of course, Kipling, he wants to go on a beer run. So it's, it was, I laughed. Okay, I see bad things happening, and I'm not criticizing the writing, but it's one of those things where I'm getting so personally involved in the story, I want to yell at the team, what are you doing?
I completely disagree with you. I completely disagree with you. There comes a point in time where you have to divide and conquer. First of all, are you going to take him, the book, to the wound? I would never take him to the wound. They did the absolute right thing. I wouldn't leave him alone either, so you got to leave him with a team member. In her case, with all of the personalities she can pull up, she can protect him. If somebody's going to come and you don't know what's going to come, which is the case right now, they're dealing with the unknown, you want somebody who could turn into a diverse number of things to handle that situation. She's the perfect choice for this particular situation. You would send somebody over there. Cliff, in his case, he's the only one that you can really send. You've got Negative Man over with Kipling. They're handling their end of things, and you had to, in this case, divide and conquer. I agree with you on your backup thing, and all. I always agree. We joke around about that. In this case, though, with this investigation, you have to investigate to get more information. This is fact-finding at the moment. They're dividing to fact-find, then to come together and pull all those facts together at one time.
See, here's how I would have played this out.
Okay.
I would have had, if you're going to split up, I would have had Jane get the book out of there, not sit and wait. And I would have had Cliff, Negative Man, and Kipling go to the gateway.
Where would you take the book?
Any place far away from there. I'd keep him moving, because he even says, I have to keep moving. I never sit in one place. I agree with that strategy with him, the bob and weave type technique. I wouldn't have sat there waiting for it. You're completely surrounded on all sides by these baddies. And the only way he's been able to survive for 18 years is the fact that he's always kept moving.
How is the rest of the team going to find him if they keep moving?
They got to set, that's when you set your rally points. Like, Jane, get him back to Doom Patrol headquarters. Or get him to
Wouldn't
this
Doom Patrol headquarters be the most obvious place? That if I was looking for book and the Doom Patrol had him, wouldn't I go look at Doom Patrol headquarters first?
I don't see. I'm assuming that Doom Patrol headquarters has some defenses or some guardians and that type of. It's more of a stronghold. I'm thinking it'd be a place where you can defend off, you can hold off these baddies. That's the only reason why I throw that out there. But even something completely different than Doom Patrol headquarters, some other place. There's got to be some place where the guy, there could be mystic defenses that could protect him. Once again, we talk about Kipling being just a little, SOB. He kind of like saying the same thing. Oh, yeah, stay here. This is where you've always been. This is the last place to look for you. No, it's not the last place to look for him, but it's, kind of like the...
That wastes a lot of time, though.
I don't know.
To take him all the way to Doom Patrol headquarters, they don't have, all the time in the world. We're talking about a group that's planning the end of the world right now.
But they need him to end the world. See, if they could get Kipling, Negative Man, and Cliff to the gateway, and shut down the gateway, a lot of this stuff will stop.
Admittedly, in defense of what you're saying, it doesn't go well. They do end up getting
everything bad happens,
right.
Because they did split up. But it's part of it is the fact that it's once again we're seeing more negative qualities of Kipling throw down mess up the group, because he basically wanted to go off and get some beer. He wanted to get some booze. He wanted to get away. Used his excuse of I need to get these things for some mystic spell to stop this thing. Not really the truth there, but because he had to go off. Cliff went by himself, and then Jane was left. Basically, she shouldn't have stayed there. But it's part of the story, and I like the story, and I like how it plays out. But it's it's one of those things where I'm like, guys, this is not a good strategy.
Well, I guess they didn't know what else to do in the situation, considering how unusual it all is.
Yeah, and it's even, and the thing I liked, and it's strengthened of the writing even. I gotta, just because you see Cliff going, okay, what do we gotta do, guys? We gotta do something here. What's going on? And Kipling, who's their quote-unquote expert, isn't really being that helpful to them. From the beginning to the end. As I said, I wanted to find redeeming qualities in the guy, and I really couldn't find any, just because of who he was. And it really plays out in this sequence. He's only thinking of himself, even though he knows the book is this massive thing that's needed to destroy the world. He really isn't even thinking of the book's safety or the security of the book or what needs to be the mission. And it's kind of like the character flaws of his own personal flaws as a quote unquote human being that makes me wonder what who is this guy? What is he doing? Come on, dudes.
Potts has stopped, by the way, Jim.
What?
Potts has stopped.
That one I got.
I'm kidding.
And this, I got this. I understood that one, and I like the usage of this. That was a funny bit.
TV mood, a potent totem is do not attempt to move.
Well, that was translated by Kipling, so that one I appreciated. But actually, as we're going into, let's go on into that, because as Kipling's getting his beer fix, they're breaking into a convenience store or whatever that is. You see the Pale Police come after him, and that was another fight sequence that I kind of liked. That they show up, they're throwing out the anagrams Kipling's translating, which I did appreciate because I was clueless. But they do a nice little kind of combo move. And here's where I was like seeing, is there possibly some good in this guy? But, not really. Negative Man takes off, making it look like he leaves him. And as, Pale Police is moving in, Negative Man comes back and fries him. And, Kipling just played up the coward role. And how much of that was acting? How much of that was actually him? A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B there.
They know who Kipling is, too.
Yeah.
Because it says, you cannot escape, stay where you are. They even say Kipling.
Yeah, well, when you saw the in the beginning of the book where he's etching on the thing, it was Kipling's picture right there that he was, that. So you knew he was the target from day one. Which
we've waited for you a long time.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that all play out there.
Now, as this is going on, I do like the fact that we still got more, mystic baddies that weren't even affecting in the story. We had the Whispering Shawns haunting the houses of unmarried women, suggesting indecent ingredients for recipes. We had the Weeping Blades.
And my wife totally forgave me for that.
Yeah. We have the Weeping Blades covering the walls with strange slogans. These are things that have nothing to do with the story. But it's just adding on just that this whole, city is all freaky and, what is this, crazy nature that is going on with, this rip and this hole in the fabric of time and space and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And the sisters. Wow.
Oh, yeah. The Little Sisters of Our Lady of Razors. I like them. That was a cool thing. And then, and it was funny because when they first introduced them, and you see, Black Anus come out, okay, you want to dance? Let's dance, And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a pretty good fight. Yeah, she can throw it on with these guys. And I could, you can expect, I was expecting a really good fight sequence, and we got that. But these aren't the only villains after this guy. It's not just one assassins. We see those other creepy type dudes, snatch the window. And I love the fact that these villains, as I said, they're doing a massive waves of attack. It's not just one at a time. This was a two-pronged attack. I kind of saw this even as the Sisters of the Razors were a diversion to get the hero away from the window so they could snatch him up. And I was like, damn, that is cool sequencing. That's a good usage of these villains. And another thing where if if they had more firepower there, if they were together, or I don't know, if they had something else going on, maybe they could have fought it off. But, it's, as I said, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. You shouldn't have split up. Anytime we see it, you watch a horror movie, as soon as they decide, hey, you go that way, I'll go this way, okay, slap a red shirt on them, they're done.
Yep. I think the creatures by the windows, those are the needle children they mentioned before, because they can't be seen through glass. If you look at the pictures, you can't see them whenever glass is in front of them.
Okay, cool. I didn't catch that. I didn't even notice that. That's cool. And adds to the fact that they introduced them earlier, then they pull them back and use them again. Nice.
One of the things I liked about the nuns that were the children is the fact that we often talk about the fact that, wow, it'd be nice if we were a kid again or we got to live through childhood. Imagine if you're trapped like that, though, and then you learn that you're trapped like that with no progression. Interview with the Vampire explored that.
Oh, yeah.
Concept, how, if you're stuck as a child, how, yeah, it looks great on paper, but there's a certain sense that we all need to grow. We all need to grow up. We all need to grow older. We all need to progress age-wise. There's different stages of our life that you go through, and it becomes a full, rich experience as you go through each of those stages. To be stuck in one of them sounds fantastic. The concept of immortality sounds great, but to never make any forward progression, to never move in any direction, to never have a new life experience, you're always stuck in the same one. What a horrifying concept, and they actually take that to a whole new level.
If you could be immortal, at what age would you want to be immortal for? What age would you want to say, okay, this is the oldest I'm going to be?
And what if you were wrong?
Yeah.
What if you make a decision of a certain age and you're like, all right, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. You have no choice.
You're thinking, oh, man, it'd be great to be 18 for the rest of my life.
Uh-huh.
Well, no, it's not, because on your driver's license it says 18, you can't go to a bar and get a booze, even though you're 50. And you don't look it, or you say, hey, I want to be, a kid eternally. Well, yeah, it's a fun time, but as you become an adult, you want to do adult things. So I'm like, well, make me a little bit mature. 30s, 40s, 50s. What's the right age? What's the wrong age? It's a toughie, man. I like the fact that you see the torment in these villains. They're not just, evil creatures out to kill and destroy the world. They have a purpose and they have a reason why they hate life, why they want to decreate all of creation. These are tortured souls that just, they want release. If Dogma, great example of why someone would want to create the universe. They had Jason Lee, when he played that demon, he had that awesome speech, about how the nature of hell and how it's a terrible place that, you wouldn't want to be there because it's the absence of God. Then humans got there and they wanted to make it even worse. So they, because of their need and, wants to be tortured and destroyed and broken down anymore, they made it even a worse place. And I'd rather not exist than have to spend one more moment in that place.
Jim, if you get stuck at 18, I'll let you have a little sip of alcohol on your birthday.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Actually, I'd probably would go with 40, 45. A little bit of gray, but you're still a young enough body that, if you're immortal, you figure you won't have the typical aches and pains and, creaks in the body. Everything will be working
If you
fine.
get stuck with those forever.
Now that would be a problem because, you're sitting there having arthritis in your hand for your rest of your life going, oh, dang it.
I don't know, dude. The 20s sound pretty good to me.
I don't know. You're a little bit young and, it's... See, I think
but none of the
after
aches and pains are there.
Well, yeah. See, that's the whole thing. The immortality based on would you have aches and pains. If once you become immortal, if you're rid of all your pain, then I would say a little bit older. If not, then I'd say a little bit younger because it's before the aches and pains set in. And same thing with weight gain.
Well, if you have no aches and pains, what if we'll do it at 100?
See, I wouldn't want to be that old, decrepit thing.
But how funny would that be?
Well,
you're all virile running around.
But hold on. Here's the thing. You're all virile running around, and you won't have any release because you won't be able to get the young ones. You won't be.
Tony Randall did.
Well, Tony Randall got it because of how much millions he has. That's how Tony Randall got it.
Well, dude, if you're an immortal, you'll get it. You'll have millions eventually.
But what kind of people do you get? I'd rather, if I was going to be immortal, I'd rather
he did all right for himself.
But I gotta admit, yeah, he did.
Yeah, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, that dude was all right.
Yeah, just like that one millionaire that had Anna Nicole. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They seem to be doing okay, dude. I don't have any problem there. I don't know. See, the whole immortality thing, I love those shows. I'm very into them. It's funny, though, it used to be a lot more attractive to me. It's not now. I enjoy the stories in a different way. I enjoy the tragic nature of them, in the sense that you watch those that die around you. It's kind of sad that I enjoy that, but I mean, I've enjoyed that exploration of it, that it's not as pretty, and it's not as, it's not all it's cut out to be. Because you literally do, your friends and family age all around you. Superman's had this exploration of that concept too. At times where there's been, more and more this idea that Superman will live well beyond. And we got to see that Lois dies and moves on. We've seen storytelling like that, and it's a very interesting exploration of that character who is so accessible, so bright, so. He connects with people, the farm boy aspect of him, knowing that family is such an important thing to him, to have to bury those people that are closest to him.
Yeah, you talk about with Highlander, where they're immortals, and they've gone through, life of, where it was, in the Highlander, the original series, when they show his first secretary, when they had the hidden scenes and stuff like that, you see him rescue her as a little girl.
Right.
So he starts off as his father figure. Then as she gets older, he becomes a lover to her. And then as she gets older, she becomes kind of like that maternal mothering figure that we see in the movie. And it's just that nature of it that I was like, it's kind of a...
You also get a hint of jealousy
Yeah.
at that age when she's like, she notices that, and that's got to be hard to have a relationship, to go through that full relationship with somebody, and know that know that your relationships will always reach a point where they will not be the same, because he's doomed to that.
Yeah.
You'll never have a relationship where you'll both have a life together and it will end for both of you the same way. You'll never have that cycle.
It's really, I don't know. I think maybe when we're young, we like the stories where people live forever and it's great, but as we get older we realize it's not going to happen, and then we're like, yeah, you're going to live forever and life's going to suck.
But that makes it fun to watch those movies, I think, again, because we see them in a different way. Like, Highlander's a great example of a movie that I watch very differently now than I did when I first saw it. And it's interesting to rewatch it now and to see it for that purpose and to see it in that way. Same thing with vampire movies.
Yeah.
That whole stuff has a very different... There's a romantic nature to vampire films, to certain vampire films. And it seems like this really romantic lifestyle and all that, but then when you really take a look at what it is and what you're doomed to, it's tragic. And I like that kind of distinction now. It's fun.
Geddy Lee from Rush did an interview a little while ago, talking just about how the band has just grown on. You see some of their early stuff, a lot of sex, drugs, rock and roll, a little bit of the kind of like a D&D type influence and that type of stuff. And then as they've gotten older, their music has changed. It's been more in a retrospective of the human soul and the human nature.
I thought you were going to tell us he was an immortal.
No. But you know what?
He just came clean. He's an immortal. And he's not happy.
Well, he wants to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which he should be. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tragedy that he's not there, that they're not in it. But that's a whole other argument that I will not make at this point in time. But it's I don't know. He echoed what we were saying, or we echoed what he was saying without realizing he had said it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one of those guys that just right now had a lunch.
Okay.
I like that Cliff knew when Cliff walks out of the church, he knows that I knew this place, but he couldn't put his finger on where he had seen it before, and which was great because it's again back to the original snow globe sequence where he was holding it. I really liked that. The moment I was like, yes, I'm like, ugh. And
I got to tell you, I got to give myself a pat on the back that I figured out where he was. Right as I saw the snow falling, I'm like, he's got to be in that dang snow globe. It's got to. Then when he's like, I know this place, I'm like, yes, I got to be right. So I actually give myself a little pat on the back that I figured it out. First read through. This was the initial read through. I figured that out.
I give the artist because of the thumb. Joshua's thumb's right there.
Well, that's on the second page. I knew on the first page when he walks out of the church. Okay. That's when I knew. All yeah. Right. I honestly didn't notice the thumb. I was so busy patting myself on the back that I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah, you didn't need to notice the thumb.
Yeah, exactly. I have that acute observational skills of mine that I didn't need to see that big glaring thumb. As the issue wraps up, we see the team that's left from minus Cliff get together, and they're going over what's happened, how the boy is gone, and and you see in the big the sky is shattered. You see the big eye in the sky, and and Kip was like, hey, it started. Decreator is happening right now. This is the end. And I was like, great way to end the issue. Because once again, with the Doom Patrol, they have failed in their mission, and they have to deal with the consequences of failure, which, this is a classic Doom Patrol stuff. And I'm like, yes, it's one of I'm liking about these guys. But
they don't give up.
No.
And they keep trying. And the eye needs a little Visine.
Well, get the red out, Clear eye, red eye. Okay.
I like this cover for 33,
Yeah.
where you get to see the team. The artistic interpretation of the team for the cover. Kind of like an edgy interpretation of them. Like I like the Crazy Jane on the cover. Just she looks a little wacky, and then you kind of see the trauma that Rebus is going through because Rebus hasn't quite gotten a handle on himself or itself, whatever you want to term it. And I do like the really cool look to Cliff in this one. Because he's a lot more confident, I think, in these issues because of the new body.
Yeah, he's got that. I'm bad. I know it.
Yeah, it was just a cool. I thought it was just a cool cover that kind of gave me the tone of the team right now. It stood out for me.
Great picture.
Now I tell you, one of the things I really digged is the decreation when we start seeing it happen. It's not your typical raining hellfire, cats and dogs living together. It's nothing biblical. It's something simple, something basic. Words are, being removed from books. People's possessions are disappearing. Travelers are waiting for a bus that will never arrive. Slowly and steadily, the world is simply disappearing. And I was just like, yeah, that's a different way of looking at it. It's not, the explosions and the torturing. It's just little stuff. And if you didn't know it was coming, you wouldn't think anything of it. You're like, oh, I thought I put my pen there. Oh, I didn't. Oh, okay. And you just go on. And then you're reading a book, and it's like things are, thoughts are disappearing from your head. Suicide people can't find their blades they were going to use to slice themselves with. It was just little things that are
words are power.
On.
Words are power. There are thoughts. There are past. There are legacy. There are present. There are plans for the future. It's everything gets slowly eaten away.
Yeah, and I also did chuckle that we get our first real emotional response from Kipling, when his cigarettes are taken away from him.
Yeah.
He's like, "Damn you!" shaking his fist to the sky, and just like, okay, this dude, man, you gotta love the guy.
But I have no doubt, like if the eyes came down and were down there, I didn't say anything. It was him.
Yeah, there would be a definitely point and take one step back.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It was him.
And once again, it's just you see the hopelessness that the Doom Patrol faces. It can't be undone. He's like, no, this can't be stopped. Once it's started, we can never stop this. And, it just adds to the whole thing. Okay, what are they going to do? Because you look at them, they've been changed, altered, bad things have happened to them that can never be undone, but they deal with it. They use that to their own strength. And the same thing with this problem. Bad thing has started, nothing we can do to stop it. All we can do in the end is maybe make things less bad. Now, when Cliff was in the Nurnham, when he was in the Globe, and he's attacked by the minions, I like the fact that they're saying that these aren't the most powerful villains that he could possibly face here. They're not the upper echelon, but his systems do not work function. They're not. He has some system errors, and he has some problems, and his armor, his body isn't working properly. Now, was it the fact that he was in there? Was it the next story arc we see that caused the problems? Or was it a combination of both? Or because that's the only thing I didn't completely understand is what broke, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was he broken because of the situation? Did the situation break him? Or did the situation create the next story arc that we see with him? What do you guys think?
That's very ambiguous. You could look at it any number of ways. It could be that he's in this, supernatural realm, and he's a body, rooted in science and mechanics that won't function in a supernatural world. Or it could be because what we find out in the last story of the trade could go either way.
Yeah, and later on we see Cliff working, we see him working properly, and we see him, step up and do what he's got to do to survive and win. But that's where I was like, is this the moment in time when the body, changes? Is this it? And I was like, and I was kind of like, because something happened.
I guess I'm confused by what you're saying. I'm not just being honest. I'm confused at what you're saying here. Are you saying as far as the body becoming a living entity?
Yeah. Is this what causes it? And when the body becomes a living entity, it doesn't know how to react, and there's that freakiness which causes his malfunction. and later he's able to get control of it. Later he's able to rationally and deal with it.
That might be it, like some foreshadowing to the fact
Right,
that there's
that's-
an issue there to even consider.
Right.
I see what you're saying. I guess I was taking it like you were saying that the doctor was working on him because of the malfunction, which I didn't take it that way at all. I took it as he was trying to improve him.
Well,
and to study it because he wanted to see. I took it as a
okay.
because of Magnus creating it. He kind of wanted to put his own stamp on it.
Well,
I think Calder mentions that he's doing it because of a malfunction, which is what we see here.
Yeah, I took it
from the fact that he just all of a sudden kind of gives out there.
Right.
Because by the end of it, I guess I didn't see.
Yeah, we didn't see any system problems, but
just that,
just that initial one. So, it's,
when he does mention at the end the malfunctioning body, you're right.
Yeah,
I don't know if I guess I didn't take it as, but I do see that now. I see your point that you're thinking that maybe that was where it took over.
Yeah, that was the birth of the entity.
Right.
Now, whether it was the mystic part of it, whether it was just because it just needed some time for it to come around.
It could have been when the electricity knocked his brain. Do you take it like he was knocked out cold, and then maybe because if you take a look when he's on the ground, the eyes are wide open there when he hits the ground. So I guess the question is that the body becoming aware at that point? I guess I'm kind of going off what you're saying now, and now that I understand what you're asking, I wonder. Because they said that he took multiple volts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they convert words to electricity.
He went down on 3 whatnots.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I guess I didn't. That's something I didn't read that way, and actually, I think you're 100% correct.
Yeah, and this is actually something that it took for me to read the next story arc to really appreciate
that really does
the
connect
sequence.
with that, and that would go with the malfunctioning, and then why they were even looking at him at all, and wow. Good catch.
Now, with as this is going on, we have with the rest of the team. Now, here's one thing that made me kind of see some redeeming qualities in Kipling, in that he didn't just sit around and wait for death. He started going to the gateway, and he was going with the group and all that. So, but of course, he is complaining and kind of a little bit of a whiny thing, saying it can't be stopped the whole time, but he did kind of step up, and that's where I'm wondering how much of this is, him acting like a coward, how much of this is him being a coward, how much of this is him not knowing how to be a hero. Maybe that's why he got kicked out of his order, because he doesn't know what the right thing to do.
I guess I still don't see. You're seeing something that I'll say you're definitely seeing something I am. I don't see the heroism from him at all.
Yeah, I don't see heroism, but I'm wondering, is there redeeming qualities to this guy? Is there something good in him?
Yes. Well, here's the redeeming quality and why you'd want him there, his knowledge. He's not there because he is the bravest fellow. That doesn't mean that he doesn't. If you're looking for redeeming qualities, in his case, if you're going to take him into the field, the guy's a coward. You're not going to put him out in the middle of everything, or that he's not your guy that you want to confront head on in a battle. But his knowledge is incredibly useful. And you bring him in that capacity, I wouldn't put him in in the middle of Eddie. There's nowhere in here.
When I'm saying redeeming qualities, I'm not talking about what does he bring to the team. I mean redeeming qualities as a human being. Is there something decent as a person in there, or is he just yes, he's got usefulness, so you just keep him on a short leash and
he's trying to stop this at all is his redeeming quality, dude. He doesn't have to do this. He could just sit home. I guess if you want to see where his redeeming quality is, because of the fact that he's more of a coward, and maybe it's a strong word for it, but we've seen definite moments of sheer cowardice in this. But because he's got that MO, he could have just stayed at home and not done any of this. Instead, he's involved. He's trying to put a stop to this. He's trying to help out in that case. Now, he's not the one running. He's not the leader running into the battle, rally crying and all that. He's rally crying from a distance, and I think he would, if you had the choice, he would like that distance to be much farther away. But
definitely.
But there are redeeming qualities to him in the sense that he does choose to do this at all. That he's even there in any capacity is a redeeming quality. Okay. But again, he's not. He's going to be completely useless in any firefight. Completely useless. There is no. There's been more cowards that have taken the bottle and bashed it over the head of an enemy than this guy does. He doesn't do anything. He'll throw out a spell occasionally if it serves the purpose of helping him escape. But that really is what he's planning for.
When Cliff is in the bubble, and we finally see who these masters of this cult is, I have to say that it was at that point in time that I'm like, okay, Grant has completely and totally lost it with this one. Just when you think it can't get any weirder or creepier, we see the people who are, quote unquote, pulling the strings of this whole operation.
But I like that Cliff reacted the same way that you're talking about. So you're right, and you're right, 100% correct. But Cliff's answer is puppets. Those are the leaders of the cult? Puppets? I mean, that line for me it's absurd.
I know, but they're not just puppets. They're discarded childhood toys that have grown bitter and deformed from neglect and are now hungry for revenge. I was like, oh my god, that's outstanding. It's like Toy Story, but, kind of going over the edge.
Again,
maybe there's hope for my Mego Batman to rise from the ashes.
Did you discard it?
Yeah, many, many, many years ago, regretfully.
You know what? If I'm going to go, I would love it to be like a whole Mego line of characters.
Oh, yeah.
We're back.
Well, hey, I don't know about y'all, but after reading this, I went to the crawl space, pulled out my old G.I. Joes and some of my He-Man action figures, because I know I did not want to go down, by Masters of the Universe guy. So I'm like, I'm going to make sure if it's going to be the end, it's not going to be them.
He even brought over his Malibu Barbie.
Characters?
No, that wasn't mine.
Mego characters with the oven mitt plastic gloves they had coming at you. It'd be kind of like this vinyl slap fight.
Oh, God, yeah.
I would taunt them with regular gloves.
Yeah, look at this.
Hey,
I got fingers. I got fingers.
I think it would just be cool because maybe instead of the snow globe, if we got trapped in there, it would be in the Wayne Foundation building. They had a wonderful Wayne Foundation playset.
Yeah.
I'd love to run around on that.
It works.
Sorry. It's true. This concept of nothing again, when we talked about like the thumbprint and being eternally trapped there, and then this idea of souls and, that we look for that. This idea of nothing here is really creepy because none of us want to believe there's nothing. Like, who wants to believe that they're going to be worm food and that's it? I mean, that's just not... we all want to believe that that's where reincarnation comes from. That's from, most of your religions are rooted in the concept that there's something afterwards. Whether it's, restarting life again or you're, replenishing life, or you're going to be something else, you're going to be a tree, whatever. There's a belief that something is going to happen. To be told that there's nothing, it's, we're shooting for that.
Yeah.
It's over. I mean, when we say it's over, it's done. Like, done. Completely. Goodbye. Blank page. That is, to me, one of the creepier concepts you can put into a book. You're not going to be enslaved. You're not going to be anything like that. You're just going to be not there. Nothing. And everything's going to be gone. We all want to believe that our life is going to have some form of legacy. People are going to remember us. There's going to be something that we've done, that we've touched somebody or connected with somebody in that capacity. And to, have things unwritten and taken away, which means everything you've done doesn't matter because nobody will remember it. It didn't exist. It didn't happen. They've taken away those words that would give it a meaning to it. So, I mean, it's a very creepy high-level concept.
Yeah. And that's a very creepy high-level concept is a phrase that could describe most of Grant Morrison's work. It's that style. He delves into the human psyche. He delves into just this mystic science universe that, things can mesh together. So it's... Yeah, there's some you can sit down and do some surreal thinking on any of these characters, and just if you delve into it long enough, you'd probably go insane. What? Do you think you wouldn't?
No. I'm just. You're right.
Now, once again, I like
that. Wasn't a negative. I was kind of laughing along with what you said. I was thinking about it. I just kind of thought, like,
you were laughing with me, not at me this time. Okay. Yeah. Unlike normally.
Oh, I'm sure there probably was a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B here. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, as we see Cliff, he starts fighting back, and he's trying to do what he can because he's not just going to lay down and take, death. It's, the hero nature. You got to rise up. You got to fight. He's still trying to free, the window, because this is their target, even though they've already read off of him and they've already started the process, but it's still, he's got to figure it out. And I like how he's constantly trying to get, messages out to the outside world, let them know where he is, and we see, back in the Doom Patrol headquarters, Joshua every so often is like, I hear something, and he hears something from the globe, and he can't understand what's going on, and it's slowly building.
And I like that too because Cliff foreshadowed that as well when he heard the kind of like the noise coming from the snowflakes and that at that point. So it was nice to see.
And then as that's going on the outside, we have the rest of the team trying to figure it out. Now, Kipling, of course, hey, it can't be stopped, but one of Jane's personalities figures a way to kind of throw off it. Once again, we're seeing again the concept of words are power. Stop is just a word. It's just, we can't stop it, but maybe we can stall it. Maybe we can delay it. Maybe we can shift things around so that it doesn't stop, but it just continues in a different direction. We saw that when she was dealing with the fifth horseman. She couldn't stop and contain the horseman. All she could do is corral the horseman to a spot where it would eat itself up. Same kind of deal here. And I liked that. I was like, oh, yeah, this is cool.
This worked, too, because I liked how we got to see Jane using, being able to access powers that were needed for this particular mission, as needed. We've seen kind of a growth from her, where she's really an effective member of the team in this particular storyline.
Now, they mentioned her personality, Lucy Fugue or Fugo or
Fugue.
Fugue?
Fugue, I think.
Fugue. Now,
yeah.
she when she first came on the scene, she was like, it looks like for me to solve these things again. Was she in the first trade?
No. She. I think she. I think she was there briefly in the last story of the first trade. I want to say she was, but just very, very briefly.
Okay,
because I'm not 100%.
Is she referring to the Horseman storyline?
No. The story before Horseman in the first trade, and because if you remember, I'm remembering a scene from the Horseman from the painting story where they mentioned that Jane was able to solve some riddle or solve something, and I'm assuming that's what I was figuring. This is that same personality that was there.
Oh, okay.
Well, the last story of the first trade, she finds a way to solve a problem. I think, it might be the Lucy Fugue personality.
Okay. So once again, that's a cool usage of Jane, and you're pulling out these characters.
I see. So you thought it was referring to Lucy Fugue was referring back to her personality solving it as opposed to Jane solving it.
Right.
As a...
Yeah.
You weren't taking it as that it was making an interconnected statement about that Jane in general.
Right. It was Lucy solved the problem, then the body, that energy body of her creates the solution. So it was a combination tag team within Jane that solved this.
Right. Being that the characters have separate personalities but are aware of each other, you'd still think of them as separate people when they...
Yeah, they're different people.
Right.
You got to look at them as that way, because
it's an interesting character. It really is a very interesting character.
Yeah. Now, also, I like how, as I said before, it's a merging of magic and kind of science. They're not stopping it; they're just slowing it down. They're shifting the decreation process. It's a counter vibration pattern. They use the church that they're in as some giant tuning fork to throw it off, give it something else to deal with, something else to think about. And once again, it's a Doom Patrol thing where, yes, we've lost, but we're going to make this loss less of a damaging. We're going to, take our, defeat and make it a victory in a way. It's, they don't stop it, but they change what they're going after. And I was just like, it's kind of cool. And we even see Kipling sort of be a hero, in that it was part of his energy. He was providing the magic behind the mojo. Negative Man was there. They had, whichever Jane personality was doing her thing, along with the laid out of the postcards in that pattern. So we're seeing, him do some stuff, which these are kind of these sequences are the stuff that kind of made me wonder if this whole time the cowardice was an act. If the whole time he was leading the team and, kind of giving them an outside guidance. Now, I don't think that. But it's one of those things I was trying to find some redeeming quality in the guy. One of those, if you remember the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from Saturday morning cartoons, Dungeon Master would appear occasionally, and he would throw out a mystic riddle for them, and later on they would use it to solve the big case. I kind of saw him as the Dungeon Master, maybe throwing out there, acting as the guy not directly involved with it.
Except his motivation for not being directly involved is that he's terrified. I agree with the analogy in that sense, but his motivation's different than Dungeon Masters.
Yeah, it's true.
It's an interesting comparison, but the motivation's completely different. Dungeon Master is there as a true guide, not because of cowardice, just because of that's his role. In the case of this guy, he's there, and his redeeming quality, though, is exactly what you said. At the end, he sets the whole thing up. He's there for his knowledge and his usefulness in that background. Without him there, it would have never been resolved. Well, sort of resolved.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they deal with it, and, it's...
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, it's still out there, but it's not happening on such a rapid scale.
But I'll talk about at the end what I think is so brilliant about the resolution and how you could take this story into reality today.
Yeah.
There's
still and you could still see this effect of it because in the end, we see that it's stopped, but it's not stopped. It's slowed down. They're taking only small pieces. So occasionally there's going to be a bit here that's taken away instead of the entire world. Eventually everything will go away. But it's now, instead of hours and minutes, it's eons until it all happens.
But it's still happening currently, which
right.
is great because when he one of the things I liked is that they chose for him to lose his pen,
right.
Niles Calder, and how many times has everybody lost a pen?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, every time you lose something, you can connect with this story, which is such an oddball. It was an interesting conclusion to it that added a real world because so much of where their power came from is something that we all do. So when you think about it, we all drive this according to the way that the story's set up. So now at the end, we're left with something that happens to all of us. We've all misplaced things, some things that we never find again. Well, where did they go? It's because of the cult. It's such an interesting, it's decreation going on. It's such an interesting way to make a real world thing that just makes you connect with stuff that really happens.
Now, do they expand on this later on, where you see periodically things disappearing?
I don't remember if it really comes up anymore. I don't really think it does. I could be wrong. I haven't read the other trades in a few months, so I don't really remember if anything pops up like that again. I do know that the last 3 panels pick up again in the 3rd trade.
Right. Rhea waking up. Or I'm assuming waking up. There's like energy spike or something in her. So I kind of figured that was a setup for the next trade. So
it is.
It's kind of neat, though, you think about it, how they do that. Because, in reality, that issue, then there was 2 more issues until anything that could happen. So you see that panel, and then the next issue you figured, oh, okay, maybe we're going to see what happened. No, we don't. We see this whole other story. What's going on here? So reading this on a monthly basis probably was an interesting roller coaster.
Well, and the same thing happened in the first trade when you had the introduction of Mr. Nobody and was it Vertigo? Or what was his name? God, I can't remember now. The guy got a bicycle on his back. I'm blanking.
Frenzy.
Yes.
Frenzy, that's right. You see like that 1-page introduction of this character that will become Frenzy, but nothing else for the rest of the story. And it's just these little things that get dropped in here and there that become important later.
Now, as we go into issue 34, we start off Soul of a New Machine story. And as I said, I list this as my second favorite story, but it is a tough race with this one and the Jane story, because this was just a great read through. It was one of those things where I read through, I was laughing hysterically throughout. There was some funny over the top bits with it that I was like, this is a cool story, but there's also a neat story concept behind it. Because we already started implying how last time how Cliff's body actually has its own sentient being. It has its own life going on in it, and this is where we really see it fleshed out and we understand it. Now, I laugh because when it opens up with Calder and they're showing him working on the new body. And it was just really your first insight into this character. They've had him in the rest of this trade, but they really never delved too heavily into this. And this has been the first time he's been, quote-unquote, major player. And I was laughing because I thought the guy was an ass. And I'm just like, oh, my God, this dude's an idiot. I hate him.
And his ego completely in place. Instead of acknowledging the technological breakthroughs of Dr. Magnus, he's trying to rip them apart.
Yeah, and belittling his accomplishments. Oh, I smile and think, but he really is an idiot. No, he created an amazing masterpiece, and who knows what, had that body not been alive at that point in time, who knows what he would have done by just going through and cutting things up. Maybe when they put the brain back in, maybe the body wouldn't have had as many feelings and as many emotions. And, maybe some of those sensory upgrades this guy just undid. Because he's the one who made Cliff's current body, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you figure his level of robotics aren't as good as Magnus if Magnus was able to make an upgrade to what he did before. So who knows? He may have actually dropped this body down to a lower level. So, it's kind of, I was like, I wanted to reach in a comic and smack the dude. And granted, that's the reaction I think we're supposed to have with him. And we see that in other iterations of this character, that Brave and the Bold that we saw, you saw that same style to this guy. So, it's funny, we say I'd like to see another monthly, and I would, but some part of me thinks that I would be annoyed by this guy, and I don't know how much I would enjoy the monthly because of him. I don't know how much...
Well, you got to remember, too, though, it's not so much him as... Like, if you think about characters that typically are annoying rabble-rousers in the comics, what's interesting about them is how the others react to him. If you've got a whole team of people like him, then I agree with you. But if you've got a team of people like these characters who at this point it's more interesting to see how does Cliff react to this guy? How does Jane react to this guy? How does Rebus react to this guy? And those are the parts that's what becomes interesting about the character. Not likable at all, but...
Oh, God, no. Yeah, and as Calder finishes up working on Cliff's body, he takes a little break, to go get some chocolate, and we see that's when the body first comes to life. He first, shows us that he's alive. And the initial, his initial reaction, his initial dealings with Cliff, he plugs him into the speakers, gives him the outside, so those two can have a little heart-to-heart chat, per se. And I really dig the body. I thought this was a cool way. He's like, he didn't want Cliff to put him back in it. He didn't want to put the brain back in him because that could kill him. He didn't know what would happen. So he drills a little small hole in the jar, and sets himself a safety measure where he puts a self-destruct thing in there if a brain is put inside him. He wants to make sure it's self-preservation type stuff. And
one thing that I'm sorry, I don't mean to do this. You're kind of glossing over what Cliff goes through when he's disembodied, which I think to me is incredibly interesting.
Oh, okay.
When he's sitting in there, the first door is the door of boredom, hearing nothing, seeing nothing. But then what ends up happening is you see him... It's almost like he's wondering, what are they doing to my brain outside? Because you see nails in the brain, you see knives in the brain, wondering, what are they doing to me? The hallucinations kick in at that point because you have no awareness. So you're completely powerless when you think about it. Without our senses, we have no clue what's going on in our outside world. Everything's dark. And even that concept is, you have no sense of presence at all. So people could be doing anything to you. And I just think it's incredibly interesting to see him like behind this closed door concept. And it says a lot to me to the strength of Cliff's character that he is able to be in that state and not come back completely nuts. A lesser person, I think, would come back completely nuts.
And also, if you think about it, when Calder and Joshua are talking, Joshua's like, hey, should we get him in the body right now? He's like, oh, no, he can wait. Cliff actually enjoys that time. And we see that Cliff doesn't really enjoy it.
No, not at all.
And now does Cliff probably tell the guy, hey, don't worry about it. It's cool. I don't mind it. Because that's the kind of guy Cliff is. Or is...
Do you think Calder even asked him?
Probably not.
Right.
Probably
So,
not. No.
it's, yeah.
So Cliff doesn't say anything. He's making an assumption.
Here's a question. We were talking about when did the body become sentient? It could have happened in the snow globe, but also if you look at page 208, you have Calder cutting the wire and then doing some work with a laser.
Then the eyes go purple on the next page.
The eyes go purple on the next page, and we know that the body has a responsometer, the same thing that Magnus uses in the Metal Men. So it could be that as well.
Right. It could part of the problem have been that Calder didn't finish his work before he left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if Calder had finished, we would have never had this problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So, or he's tinkering with stuff he has no comprehension on.
Right.
And
Exactly.
So, what's this wire do?
And you're right. He left him, and like you said before, they left him in a state where the drill was in there. If you become sentient, would you want any possibility that you would lose that? No. I actually really liked this because I understood what the body was doing.
And I got even into it more because I started thinking, just if I was Cliff, how would I handle this? What would I do? And my first reaction would have been like, hey, dude, don't worry. I'm not going to let them put me in you now that I see you're alive. I'll have my old body. Yeah. And then we'll figure out what's going on with you, man. I'm a hero. I'm one of those good guys. And part of me is thinking I would say this to save myself, to get him to plug up the hole. But also part of me is thinking I would say that because that is a hero thing.
We could be a team.
Yeah, we've seen Cliff, willing to sacrifice himself for others. This is a sentient life now. This is a living creature. Granted, it's his old body, but it's still he wouldn't want to kill it. And the thing that I really loved is we see this later on. We see Cliff say very similar stuff to the body as they're continuing on with their discussion. And it's, I was like, yes, exactly what I'm thinking. I'm reading. And I really ate that up. But I loved the body's response to that. He's like, the brain thinks, the body does. You see a definite difference without having the brain in there, how the body is. Yes, it's a sentient life, but he doesn't really have those cognitive abilities. He doesn't have the strategery that you need, to do this type of stuff. And I like that.
Is that even a word?
Strategery. Yeah, the president said it. It's a real word. That's one I didn't even make up.
No, the president did. The whole bit with Mala and the brain with the baby cart or baby carriage.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Just a really twisted and bizarre setup to the whole scenario.
Now, I got to ask a question for you guys. When this whole thing was going on with Mala and the baby carriage, and as I said, it was over the top, but I still laughed. I loved it. I was laughing my head off, even though I could recognize just how cheesy it was he was pushing a baby carriage. But when I was just thinking about Mala and the Brain, was I the only one who was singing the Pinky and the Brain theme? Well, that's going on.
No, not at all.
It's Mala and the Brain, Mala and the Brain. One is a monkey, the other's insane. I was just like, this kept going over my head.
And even this panel, if you look on the panel on page 216, where the Brain and Monsieur Mala, what a pair, a couple of swells.
Yeah.
It does. It's got that old animated cartoon team up. Dun, da, da.
Yeah.
A lot like Brave and the Bold right now. The current Brave and the Bold cartoon has this kind of vibe to it. So, I definitely had that kind of...
Yeah, and you see the lady dealing when she looks, little baby carriage, let me look inside. Freaks out. Now,
she looks like something right out of Archie comics, too.
Now, here's the thing. If you saw a giant gorilla with bullets across his chest and a beret in his hair pushing a baby carriage, would you want to see what that baby looks like?
It'd be like Great Baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I don't know if I would.
I'd pay to see.
Yeah, I would too, actually. I got to go with him on that one, too. It's very carnival.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'd be a little bit nervous on that one. That one, that's maybe where I would tap out. I'm like, you guys, you go ahead, tell me what you see. I think I'll just wait here for the reaction.
Yeah. I've always been a sucker for brains in a jar type characters. That's always just kind of a character type that I love.
Yeah, and they always, the super villain kind of mad scientist archetype. That's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we're going through the origin of Mala, we do see that he is the super genius, and we see that he and the Brain are these, super powerful villains. They're nasty creatures. I got a little bit of a taste of them. I have a understanding of who they are. The one thing I never understood, and maybe you guys can explain this to me, is why didn't they build a robotic body for the Brain? Why is he in that jar being carried around? Why don't they give him some arms and some legs and let him do some stuff?
Well, they've tried that multiple times, though.
Yeah.
I don't know about this run, but I know that has been an MO, of trying to do that, and they just failed horribly every time that they've tried to do that or put them in bodies. That has been something that has happened. It depends on the mission. That is the
purpose of this issue as well.
Right, to get him a body. So that's I understand. And I like how that turned out. But this, you see, I never understood why. I can see, maybe. They want to get them in the perfect body, and maybe that's what's holding them back, because you can never truly find the perfect body. There's always going to be some type of flaws, and maybe it's a character flaw in them that they can't accept that this is worthy of the Brain. This is worthy. No, you got to accept what's going on.
Yeah, well, these are vintage Doom Patrol bad guys here from all the way back. I've always wanted to read some of those old stories. Still haven't had a chance yet.
I'd love to go back and read those, too, and just see kind of the origins of this and the original concept. Because I guess this was, Morrison was trying to get back to the original concept with this.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Mala and the Brain sneak into the Doom Patrol headquarters through the ventilation shaft. I did chuckle, because we see Mala take, let me move the Brainmobile, I'll hide it over here just in case. They're calling the baby stroller a Brainmobile. And then the Brain's just his rant. That was just a wonderfully funny rant. First Doom Patrol, then the Titans, and then the Salvation Army.
No mercy.
No mercy. I'm like, I agree, man. Let's get rid of the bell ringers. It's annoying.
Mr. Charity.
Yep. Hey, I'm the sensitive one of the show.
Yeah. I always love that, too. I get blasted at times. But there's certain places I will never go. And you just knocked down a charity, dude.
And for the record, I always donate to them when I walk past them. So you guys yelling at me before you start yelling at me saying I have no heart.
He just waits and kicks them after the fact.
He gives them Canadian money.
Yeah.
Then he chastises them for not having their regulation haircuts.
Yeah. If you're in the Army, come on. Spits on them shoes, mister. More goofy stuff going on is, we're seeing the body dancing around and he's enjoying life. He wants to experience everything. He wants to see what's going on, what he sees in the movies. He wants it was weird because I was accepting this because you think about it, it is a newborn. He doesn't know life. He's learning it as it's going on. So it's kind of that, oh my God, yeah, oh, this is cool. And all this happiness and joy that he's feeling is kind of interrupted by the arrival of Mala and the Brain. And
wait, arrival via knock-knock joke.
Yeah.
I like that the body didn't understand knock-knock jokes.
No.
Because why would it? It just recently become sensitive. And
I like the fact that Mala was able to take the Brain. Because Mala is a vicious fighter, and he has a genius. The Brain is new at this. Yeah, he's got this firepower, but he doesn't know how to use it yet.
We have an answer. We're totally missing it. We have an answer here on how long this thing's been sentient. It's been sentient since it's been created. Because if the thing's seen movies and stuff like that, I want everything I've ever seen in the movies. Well, I mean, obviously this thing has been sentient for time that we haven't seen on camera even. So since basically the body's been created, this thing's been around.
Cool.
Yeah, another there is a responsometer problem.
Yeah.
Now, one question maybe you guys can explain for me that it was one of those moments I laughed at, but I go, what the heck are they doing? And Cliff kind of echoed my sentiments when, the Mala throws the Brain at Cliff so they can go face to face, head to head, and even the Brain's like, my old nemesis, now we can go face to face, man to man. And Cliff's like, what the hell are you doing?
That was great.
funny stuff that I was just like laughing, and I was like, you mentioned Sean earlier, airplane movies. It was that type of stuff
But
that they're doing.
Even
this.
the brain references too.
Yeah.
Mala, for God's sakes, what are you doing?
Well, I think this is the classic Jim Seguin palate cleanser, coming after the storyline of the Cult of the Unwritten Book and the Crazy Jane. You have this pretty light and humorous story.
There you go. This is a palate cleanser within Doom Patrol.
70,001 titles now.
So even Doom Patrol can do it. Yes.
It would take less time if we went through the ones that aren't palate cleansers.
Exactly. Now, when Mala takes out the body and puts the brain into the new body, I like that sequencing, because he's trying to warn him, hey, I'm rigged up, but Mala knocks him unconscious before he can give out the warning about the safety measures he's put in place.
I know, and I love that. The whole setup there, I was just like, wait for it, wait for it.
Yeah. Now, how much of the brain's action in the body was actually the brain? How much of it was the body? Part of me wonders is maybe the body recognized his loss and he kind of like was in control of the things and was able to manipulate it a little bit. Because you think about it, Mala does take his gum, plugs up the hole that's leaking from Robot Man. And it's just that whole gets his guard down, gets him in close, so that when he self-destructs, takes Mala out with him. Or was that all the brain? Was that all those two?
Well, I took it as the self-destruct kicked into place the second that the body lost sentience, or lost control. So the second the brain went in there and the body no longer had control of the body, the self-destruct failsafe kicked into place. Because I don't think if the body had sentience, why would the body want to blow itself up? I think the body wanted to blow itself up if it lost control.
So the sequencing before the blow-up, do you think that was the body, or that was the brain?
That's the brain.
Okay.
No, it's the brain. They've been together so long.
Yes. We saw a special moment.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was a very tender, sweet moment.
Between monkey and machine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Love knows no boundaries.
Hey, you know what? If Hawkman can go for some primate loving, the brain can go for some Mala loving. I got no beef with that, man. Whatever floats your boat.
Is Hawkman going for?
That was from Trinity.
Well, Primate was loving Hawkman, not the other way around.
He was flirting with her. He was hitting on her as well.
He was using his male charm to get something out of her. That's what he does. He like any true warrior, he takes advantage of any situation.
So he's just playing with the poor girl's emotions.
That's
just wrong, man. That's mean. Hey. Playing with the heartstrings, man. That's wrong.
Hey, it was effective.
Is that the actions of a hero?
Yes, I know. Is it? I don't think so.
It's the actions of a warrior.
Warriors fight with honor, not with deception.
I think Sean's going to leave.
Yeah. Well, it's his house. He won't leave. He'll throw me out. But yeah.
No, I'll just edit that whole segment out.
Once again, the power of editing.
Yes, yeah.
It's amazing I'm in any of these episodes.
You aren't. How would you know? You've never listened to anything.
I've listened to one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually some other guy. Well, what I do is I go through and I record these with you, and then there's somebody else that comes in and plays your part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, nobody knows whatnot that you even say whatnot on the show.
Part of Jim Seguin will be played by.
Yeah, it's actually 12 different guys. Different guy every week.
Often imitated, but never duplicated.
You are, you're the most like you. I love that the hat, the Fidel Castro Shea hat, winds up. The question there, Jim, seeing as we never read any of these volumes, Dave will know this, but did you take it as the Brain and Mala were not appearing again at this point?
Well, I took it that ended them. That stopped them right there. That was bye-bye. Usually a robot exploding and the hat flying off Monkey's head, usually for me is an indicator that they're dead. And that's something I was wondering, do we see them again later on? Is this the end of the Brain and Mala? Because I know we see them current continuity, or we saw them on Salvation Run. So right. They weren't completely gone.
Well,
until then.
Except though, you got to remember, the Doom Patrol continuity is kind of wonky right now.
Right.
Just in the sense that Byrne did a reboot, but I guess now that reboot isn't... I don't know if they've gone back to this, or if they've gone back... So it's interesting.
Well, I do know that you don't see Mala and the Brain in any of the Morrison run.
Okay.
And I hated that they got killed off in Salvation Run. But then I remember, hey, they blew up here. We saw them in Salvation Run. They'll be back.
Sure. And there's always ways to explain how they escaped and that type of thing. Good writer who wants to do it.
Yeah.
That was a great... I am really glad you chose that. It was a great read. I really enjoy... It's a very bizarre read, but a great read.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Watch out, Batman. This could be tricky.
Our sponsors for this episode are InstockTrades.com and DCBService.com. Don't forget to check out the Flash Rogues, collecting issues 177 to 181 of the Jeff Johns run, regularly $14.99, 47% off, only $7.94. 100 Bullets is releasing its final issue, which is regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $179. Can't believe 100 issues of 100 Bullets already. That seemed to fly by. And don't forget Air. If you haven't been reading Air Volume 1, Letters from Lost Countries, collecting issues 1 through 5, regularly $9.99, 50% off, only $4.99. Great way to jump on that book and check it out at a nice discounted price. So thank you so much, DCBService.com and InstockTrades.com, for supporting us in 2008. We look forward to a great 2009 with you. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to jump back with a JLA JSA special. That's going to be released on January 1st, and we're going to be talking about the JLA milestone issue. We're going to be talking about JSA The Kingdom, everything up to the current thing. We're talking about the specials. We're going to talk about the most recent release of that. We have a big discussion about those two team books. We're going to have, I'm sure, some speeding bullets and things. There's a lot of stuff that's been coming out that Jim and I want to talk about. So we're definitely going to have it's going to be a big packed episode. We're going to have listener voicemails, and, because we want to get your thoughts on the show. So I want to wish everyone a very happy 2009 and hope that the new year brings a lot of joy to you guys. I hope the holiday season's great to everybody. And thank you so much for listening to us. If it wasn't for you guys being here, we wouldn't come back and do this every week. So your support and your tuning into the show really does mean a lot to us. Have a wonderful holiday season, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
How are you doing?
I've had probably the most interesting week of my life. This week, I'm going on vacation. My family and I, we're all going to Vegas, and I've been looking forward to Vegas because I love Vegas. I love visiting the city. I love gambling. I just, I'm looking forward to it. And then news thing happens. Freak snowstorm hits Vegas. So my sunny, warm, wonderful weather that I'm looking forward to is going to be, 50s, maybe 30s. I'm like, I can deal with it. I'll be inside the casino. I'll still be warm. I'll still be in Vegas. I'm fine with that. Work starts having me do this. I've been part of a testing team for our operational system. And this week we started a new batch of testing. Whenever there's an improvement or change to the system, we have to do this testing. And this round of testing has just been so hellacious that I'm ready to climb to the top of the water tower with a high-powered rifle and see how many people I can get before the snipers get me. So all these stuff are compounding. But I'm just thinking, okay, you know what? All I got to do is just make it to Friday. Make it through Friday. I go to Vegas. I'm happy. Everything's golden. Friday morning, Cleveland gets this beautiful freezing rain, sleet, absolutely the worst, crappiest weather you can imagine driving in. And I'm like, oh, great. Not only do I have to drive across the bridge in this, I got to, drive to work. And I'm just like, oh. I'm like, okay. And I couldn't take off because I have this testing I have to continue doing, the testing that I absolutely hate. So I'm in my car swearing, and I'm stopped at a light about 100 yards from my house. And as I said, I was stopped at the light. The car behind me, however,
wait, Jim, hang on one second. Yeah. You seem disgruntled. Just checking.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Yeah,
because I was getting there for a second there. I'm like, is Jim reading me Final Crisis 6? What's going on? I don't know.
yeah, evil has won. But there is hope. There is hope. Now, eventually.
Okay, so there's this car behind you that couldn't stop.
Well, yeah, car behind me couldn't stop and hits me. Now, I've been rear-ended before, so my car has been. So I'm, I know how I can tell based on how much I jostle how bad of a hit it was.
Wait.
What?
Why did you feel the need to qualify that your car has been? You go, I've been rear-ended before. Well, my car has been. Why did you need to do that? What did you think people were thinking? No, I'm just curious. What was running through your...
Hold on.
I thought that was really funny.
Okay.
I'm like,
Well, I see what you're saying,
why did
and that's
you
not
stop?
what I intended. Okay, what I meant was... I see what you're saying, and I'm like, oh, God, why did I say that?
I'm
No,
wondering,
here's,
like, why would you
here's why I said that.
I
Hold
was
on.
completely following your story. I'm sure everybody else was. Why did you need to stop?
Why I meant that was because I'm not talking just like riding in a car with you getting hit, from behind. I mean, while I'm sitting in my Jeep.
But that's still rear-ended.
Well, but no, I'm like, each car can take a hit differently,
Okay.
Like, and we're about to get to the stuff. Explain why I'm saying that.
So you were qualifying what vehicle you were in.
Right. Yeah. It's actually what I meant. And I understand how it could be construed, whatever the word is. I don't know.
Misconstrued.
I'm still riding adrenaline.
Misconstrued.
So
I just thought I was fascinated by that. I'm like, why did he feel the need to stop his story partway through and explain what rear-ended meant? We all know.
Hey, if you're like a passenger in like a little rice burner or something like that, it's gonna, you'll take the hit differently. I'm riding, Jeep Liberty, 4-wheel, solid, sturdy, American-made car. And I'm going to explain why I'm talking about Jeep Liberty. The Sensei of Whatnot is a Jeep man for life.
So basically what you're saying here is, like it or not, everyone is going to know what it felt like to be you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
So I get this little bump. It wasn't too bad. I knew it wasn't too bad. So I'm like, but it's still just adding on to it. So I pull into the gas station that's right there. I look at the dude's car who hit me, and his hood of his car is like canopied. I look at mine, and the canvas cover over my spare tire on my back of my car, because I have one of those spare tires on the outside of the car, is ripped. Nothing else scratched or damaged in my car. I'm like, yes, this is why I have a Jeep.
Now, that's a spare tire on your car, right?
That's a spare tire on my car.
Okay.
And we're going to get to why I'm really mentioning why my spare tire got hit in a minute. So I'm looking. It didn't look like the tire was damaged, because I was worried maybe if the guy hit it when he ripped the cover, maybe he damaged the tire as well, because that could be a very viable cause. But it looked okay. Everything looked cool. I go about my way to work, swearing the entire way because of the sleet, freezing rain, and stupid people on the road. But I get to work safely. I make it through the day just holding on to, the thought of, okay, I'm going to Vegas. And throughout the day, I started noticing little plastic pieces in my cube. And at first I'm thinking, okay, maybe someone's throwing something at me, because the people I work with, we all goof around. We shoot rubber bands at each other. And it wouldn't surprise me if someone threw little plastic squares at me. Well, I found out what these little plastic squares were. They were pieces of my shoe.
What?
My shoe is falling apart.
Wait. They were in your... Okay, so these weren't like on your desk or anything. They were on the floor.
Yeah, they're on the floor.
Okay. Why was your shoe falling apart?
They're old, cheap. I don't know. They're maybe a year old or something like that.
So your shoe was like decomposing while you were wearing it? Is that what was going on?
Yeah, while I'm
here?
wearing them. So I'm like, okay, I got to get new shoes before I go on this trip, because there's no way. Because we do a lot of walking when we're in Vegas, and I'm like, there's no way these shoes will last a week in Vegas, because it's they're falling apart, and I'm just sitting.
Wait, are these the only shoes you have?
What?
Are these the only shoes you have?
Well, these were my tennis shoes, and I was going to bring them.
Okay.
Because it's Friday, so it's dress down Friday.
Okay.
So I'm wearing my jeans, so you can.
And I had a
shoes.
dress down day to day too, so I get that.
So I'm like, okay, I got to get shoes. So I called you, and we're going to do a quick recording. I'm like, hey, I got to go to the store first, and we'll figure out what we're going to do later and all that stuff. Well,
now wait. Do you realize here? You often
Mm-hmm.
portray me as this cruel dictator that like drives, what you got to do and all that stuff. Now, if you recall, when you called up, I was very benevolent. I said, Jim, whatever you need, buddy. If you can't make it here tonight, I've got the Doom Patrol content. I can make this work. Whatever you need, buddy, you tell me. We'll make it work. If you want to stop over on your way back, we could do some voicemails. If you're not able to do that, no worries. We'll put it on the next episode. No problem, anything like that. Now, do you realize here that if I had been this cruel dictator that you always portray me to be, none of this would have happened?
Well, actually, it may have, because here's what happened. I'm driving to the store because I got to get new shoes. Plus, I had to get like underwear and socks and whatnot, and a couple other odds and ends that I realized I didn't get. And then
Is any of that, wait, hold on. Is any of that relevant to the story?
Well, kind of. I'm driving to Walmart.
Okay.
is part of the story. And I'm taking the same route
I just don't want
to go to your house.
Yeah, I'm just like disturbed that you're like feeling the need to tell me that you're buying underwear and stuff. Like, I don't want to know.
Well, there may be somebody listening right now saying, "Oh, okay, I wonder what Jim was going to the shop for." So now they know. So this is what's called bringing the magic. To bring the full thing. I'm putting the person in my mindset. I'm putting the listener right now knows what I'm going through. They know what I'm thinking about. They know what I'm like. Okay, I got to get the, I got to get the Hanes. I got to get the Fruit of the Loom. They know what I'm thinking. Okay, so I'll continue. And I'm driving down the road.
As long as it's off that topic.
Hey, tangents. Yeah, we do them. So I'm driving down the road, and I drive slow. I drive slow enough to drive Miss Daisy. Everyone laughs at me. My carpool calls me Grandma because I am the slowest of the drivers, and the other two members of my carpool are females. So I'm just the one we call Wheels, the other one we call Speedy, and I'm Grandma. So I'm slow, cautious, careful driver. And I'm just doing my normal thing, just going down the road, 35 miles an hour, and I hit a patch of black ice, snow. I don't know what the heck I hit, but I start doing massive fishtail. I'm doing the turn into it. I'm like, okay, you'll control, and I'm just kind of getting control. I'm heading into this ditch that's off the side of the road. Now, the company that was right there, it's their property, they decorated their front of their landscaping with these really large boulders. And you can't call them rocks because these things were huge. And, so I see myself heading right towards one, and I'm like, next thing I know, I'm on the ground, turning, facing the other way, in traffic, and I'm stopped going, what the heck just happened? So I did a quick check, making sure I'm still alive, I'm not hurt, I didn't hit anybody. I check on the tires. The tire looked like it was completely just shredded, and I couldn't tell if it was a bad angle, if the tire wheels just turned, or if the entire axle and everything was snapped. And I'm like, so I call my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, I need help. So he's like, oh, hold on, you okay? You okay? And, so Dad jumps in his car, and he's coming out to, for the rescue. My dad is the coolest guy in the world, by the way, because it's freezing cold out, and Dad's like, no problem, I'm on my way. I called for backup, as always, and, my backup was there for me. And then after that, I, of course, called Sean to let him know we're not going to be recording tonight. But here was when the hell I'm going to get done here.
Here was the funny part, too. Like, we had this discussion. I mean, it actually, I ball bust you and all that stuff. But that's purely joking around. But when he called me up on the phone, it was like literally, dude, you were like apologetic. You were like saying, maybe we can try when I get home to figure out a way to call. Now, when you just called just now, you called my phone, before we got on Skype. You called me up. I was like, dude, I've got the show covered. We have the Doom Patrol segment. It's a full episode where I can make it work. We don't need to record tonight. Just relax. And you're like, dude, I want to record. We got to get this story out there.
Yeah, I had to tell the story. Now, it was one of those things where, I did, how you get those stressful situations you hear in stories where you don't really remember everything.
Right.
Someone's like post-traumatic stress syndrome, or probably not that extreme because it was just, but there is like stress involved in a car accident.
Sure.
So I didn't completely remember everything that happened up until the point seeing my car head right towards that big rock, and then. Dad and I are changing the tire. We go and we jack it up, or we start raising it. I pull off that spare that was maybe hit. So we're like, I'm taking the spare off. Go ahead and let's hope this thing actually is working fine. And we're getting it on the car, and we start looking at the area around us. Now, there are tire tracks going to the rock. There's a 4 to 5 foot patch where there are no tire tracks, no marks in the snow. And then there's my Jeep where it hit the ground. So I hit the rock, did a 180 spin midair, and hit the ground. I'm like, and that's when I realized, like, holy crap, what did I do? And that was all just from going like maybe 35.
I remember
maybe
you first
35.
called me too, because you called me and told me this story, and I was sitting here, I'm like, dude, are you even okay? Because you told me all the damage to your car first, so you never clarified at any point in time that I'm like actually okay. I'm like, is dude delusional and calling me up and like worried about the show? Because I thought it was really like I'm like this is bizarre. Dude's like calling me up. He's all worried about recording. I'm like, what's going on?
Well, that was pure adrenaline and stress.
Okay.
I'll be honest, that was, because I did the same thing like with Dad. I'm like, yeah, I think I may have snapped the thing, and I was kind of babbling a little bit, and it was pure, Dad's like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But I still am riding a stress high. I'm still riding an adrenaline high, and it's been, a couple hours. I'm still wired about it. And when I start thinking about what happened, I have that nervous laughter, that little nervous laughter that you get sometimes when you're, in an extreme situation. And so I'm still riding this. I'm probably going to be riding this for a couple of days, and that's part of the reason I wanted to record it, because I wanted you all to hear just this kind of sound in my voice, because I know I got to sound goofy right now, and frankly, don't care. Don't care. So it is right around as Dad and I are getting the tire fixed on. That's when we both realized I was airborne. My Jeep was airborne. Now we're thinking, there's no way there could be any. This thing's got to be damaged. There's got to be damage to the car. When we get the one tire off, we're looking around.
Dude, this story went from being like a car crash story to the creation of a Batman villain. Because you're sitting there slowly through this whole thing, you're snapping. Yeah.
I gotta come up with a cool villain name.
Yeah.
Well, I can actually be the sensei of Whatnot and be a villain. Maybe it's time for me to go, turn to the other side.
Or Grandma of the Whatnot.
Okay, so Dad and I
I'll gum you to death.
What?
I'll gum you to death.
Okay.
Right, please carry on to your origin story.
Okay, so Dad and I have the tire off, and we're looking underneath the car with the tire off, and looking at all the struts and whatnot underneath there. We didn't see anything broken. We didn't see anything bent or deformed. No liquids, no nothing. And Dad, I think the car's okay. He's like, yeah. And we're both kind of shocked at this point in time, because the amount of damage this thing must have taken. So far, I just have one flat tire, and then we're even looking at the rim of that tire.
Dude, this is the birth.
Good.
This is the birth of the crash test Whatnot.
Oh my God! Please, where's Whatnot? Crash test Whatnot. I gotta share that one with the family.
The startling origin of the crash test Whatnot.
Oh my God! Outstanding.
Because you did, as this story's going on, you sounded slowly more and more twisted. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid for you anymore. I'm afraid for others.
Well,
This is how it all starts.
I can't stop laughing right now.
Yeah. Well, see, I've got these images now, ever since we've been talking, because you're sounding crazier and crazier. I'm thinking to myself, does he have a bumper stuck in his head or something, and we don't know it?
No.
Because you sound incredibly coherent, but how do we know what you're what's happened to you?
Yeah, there's just this bloody gash in the side of my head, but aside from that, I'm fine. That night, we put the tire on. We get things going, and I drive right into that gas station, drove around the gas station, we put a little bit of air in there, and the car's running fine. And I'm I was sitting there what the heck? I flew for 4 feet I literally flew 4 feet. And I hit one tire's flat, other three are fine. Everything seems like it's working fine. Drive home, no problems, no leaking, no dripping, no whatnot is wrong with the car. And we're sitting there going, how the hell did that happen? This is why I am a Jeep man for life. Dude, I hit a car, spun it 180 degrees, flew 4 feet, in the air, landed, and only thing I have right now that I think all I have to show for it is, maybe I got a damaged tire, and I don't think I have anything wrong with my car.
Wow.
I know. Now of course
it's actually a good ending to the story then.
Yeah.
Because you can.
Yeah. And I went to the, Dad took me to the store because I wasn't about to, risk it again. Went to Walmart, bought my shoes, bought my other stuff as well. And then I'm I got to call Sean. Just one, to let you know I'm okay, but two, I had to share the story because this was a holy, what the heck, man? Partially, I'm thank you, Jesus, for this one. I really appreciate it. I got someone I got someone watching for my back. And two, thank you to Jeep for making one heck of a car. That damn thing's a tank.
Holy Boulder Dash, whatnot.
Not Boulder Dash, Boulder Crash.
Oh, yeah, yeah, there you go. Wow. Dude, only you.
I know.
Well, that's because you're the superhero bridge man.
Yes. Well, you know what? I'm no longer afraid of bridges.
You're afraid of
I
boulders?
just survived this. I can take anything, man.
Really?
As long as I'm in my Jeep, I'll be safe. That
Really?
damn thing's a tank. That's a tank, man.
So this is like your bridge mobile.
Yeah, this is the Bridgemobile.
Wow.
Yeah. Now you know why I had to share this story.
Yes. Well, I personally, my concern was I was glad you were alive. Because that was like my first question. You're like sharing this story with me when you called up initially. I'm like, dude, are you okay?
Yeah, I know.
Because you're like, you
And I
told me,
appreciate the
you
concern.
were like sitting here telling me all about your Jeep, and this is, you know, and I don't know what happened to my tire, maybe the rims. I'm like, dude, are you okay?
And you know what? I gotta give props to the various strangers and people who I have no idea who slowed down. Said, "Hey, you okay?" I had one dude because I was sitting in the car, and I was kind of like hunched over a little bit, pissed because what had happened. And the guy literally pulled over the side road, ran out. "You okay?" And I'm like, "Oh, dude, I'm fine. Oh, okay. The guy was actually legitimately concerned, and so it was really cool seeing people being concerned for a stranger who looked like they're in an accident. And it wasn't even just one person. It was like probably a handful of people. There was a point in time when I actually stood outside my car because there's so many people slowing down to make sure I was okay. Like, if I'm standing outside my car, they probably, standing outside my car talking on the cell phone, they probably figured I'd be okay. So that was kind of neat to, kind of restored my faith in my fellow man that people would, go to such lengths to make sure I was okay.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, actually. That
Yeah. And even when Dad and I were working on it, we had a couple car people say, "Hey, you guys okay?" Like, "Yeah, we got it." So it was kind of neat to see total strangers, offering to lend a helping hand.
Yeah, that's cool. It's an inspirational story.
Yes, it
Which is good in the holiday season. Wait,
well.
it's good in the holiday season. The holiday
I know.
spirit's out there, dude.
Yeah. So, and
Well, thanks for sharing that, Santa whatnot.